I first start the battle by testing out the Nightshade's strength with a clawed strike directly meeting its fist, which ends up sending me flying away. But the difference is not insurmountable this time, and I left a single small scratch on the demon with my attack despite my wrist and arm bones kind of snapping. Only kind of? Tar mutters, sounding like he's starting to get back to his usual self. Albeit slowly. My wounds heal almost instantly with my maxed out blood regeneration, proving exactly why I've met the requirements to advance it to Lycan's regeneration. And at the same time, I transform my body into blood and reform myself instantly a few meters away, avoiding a powerful strike from the nightshade that causes the ash on the ground to rise. Out of the corner of my eye, I find all the knights and Satan all looking rather surprised at my use of blood transformation. But then the nightshade finally narrows its glowing red eyes at me and roars, making darkness spread out over the area as beasts of all shapes and sizes rise from the ground made of pure solidified darkness. Just what I was waiting for. Bloodthirst now resets after 3 minutes of me not killing anything, and the boost is an entire % per kill. Although I don't know if the limit on how many stacks I can get is the same as it was before, which was about 250 stacks at once. I grin before immediately spreading my arms out and using blood manipulation on all of the blood in the area to raise it all into the air and form weapons with it. And immediately after that, I use rain of blood to pour plague-filled rain down around us that I merge with the weapons, giving each and every weapon every single plague in the set. Everyone in the area except for the nightshade, who is currently lost to his pride sin, shows various different expressions of shock at the sight of me using a direct manipulation skill. One of the most powerful skills in existence, since it lets you directly manipulate your magic to a degree. With limits, obviously. After filling the sky with hundreds of plagued blades of blood, I send them flying down at the army of creatures made from darkness, skewering them all. But since they're made by a Class B, my attacks don't kill them. They do severely weaken them though, and I take that chance to transform back into my quadrupedal beast form and attack, tearing them apart now that they're weakened. And each and every one I kill raises my stats by a single %, making it easier and easier to kill the others until I'm on par with them in terms of pure brute force. Although that wasn't until after taking wounds severe enough to kill a normal person. Wounds that only end up being minor conveniences to my maxed out blood regeneration. So I continue slaughtering the Nightshade's minions, occasionally transforming into blood and reforming myself several meters away whenever the Nightshade itself tries to attack me. Good thing Satan sent it into a frenzy, otherwise I wouldn't be able to kite it like this. That aside, this is the most fun I've had in over a year. Well duh, Tar mutters, sounding like he's gotten over his shock at how powerful I've become. But how? Or not. Now isn't exactly the time to be catching you up. Just know that I got 2 new legendary skills and can upgrade blood regeneration to the mythic skill Lycan regeneration. Although I'm waiting on upgrading it till after the battle, since it'll make the skill weaker at level 1 even if it's a mythical. Or at least it probably will. It's hard to tell with mythical upgrades, Tar comments. I've heard that some do get worse at level 1 and significantly better at higher levels again, and others just get significantly better right away. Yeah. Best not to test which one Lycan's regeneration will be when it could make this fight a lot harder. I continue to slaughter the Nightshade's summons as it summons more and more of them, seemingly never stopping. And at some point, I start using Blood Swarm C, a skill I don't use often, to summon manifestations of blood to fight them when I've killed enough that my stats almost equal the Nightshade. Almost being the key word, as I still need to use blood transformation to get away from it. It's just too bad that none of these summons give me any EXP. Although I guess that is probably a good thing in the end, since if I did level up, then I wouldn't be 100 levels below the Nightshade anymore. So I'd lose my plus 100% bonus, along with any chance I had to not die. I continue slaughtering the Nightshade's summons for a bit, racking up almost all of the stacks possible, only to be stopped when the Nightshade finally loses its patience and sends a wave of darkness outwards from it, covering the entire wasteland and sending me flying. But I manage to grit my teeth and land on my feet, the various wounds I got from it recovering quickly enough as I sprint forwards and continue slaughtering more summons. 5 more. A slash straight across the throat of a beast-like beast of darkness. 4. A head ripped off of another with nothing but my jaws. 3. One more head ripped off, but with my claws this time. 2. And another beast slashed across the throat. 1. I grin and jump straight over a few humanoid creatures of darkness before landing smack dab on top of a beast-like one and tearing out its throat, finding the message I'm looking for appear in my vision. But this time with a surprise. Bloodthirst effect applied. Stack is now 250. You have reached the maximum number of stacks you can have at once. Stacks will not reset for 10 minutes, regardless of kills made by the user. Oh? That's a nice new addition to the skill. My grin grows wider, and I finally focus my full attention on the nightshade. Only to quickly realize that there are too many summons to do that. Then again, the thing is a summoning-focused demon. Annoying. I sprint forward to continue the massacre. Satan watches on as the princess fights the random demon, whose name Satan doesn't even remember. And all Satan can feel is a vicious mixture of two strong emotions. Extremely strong fear. And shock. By the Demon King, she's actually fighting on par with a Class V while at Class 4. The demon in charge of the current assault finds himself unsure of how to take this. Because not once in history has a being ever been able to cross the boundaries to kill a Class V while at Class 4. Not even the Demon King could do it, nor assassins who had every possible advantage they could get. But now he feels as if he's watching history, a vague spark of hope filling his eyes. One mixed with a small amount of bitterness. Because he knows that no matter what happens, he loses. If the princess dies to his challenge, he'll be ostracized by every last demon on Tartarus and possibly even killed. No, most likely killed. And if the princess wins against his challenge, then he will be required to retreat. All of the work they just did, all of the demons they sacrificed to do so, will be lost. And they won't be able to attack again for an entire month, which is more than enough time for the humans to regain their control. Especially since Satan failed to kill one of the knights before she got there, all because I was messing around. Satan grits his teeth and glares in the direction of the Red Knight, who is only barely managing to retain his consciousness after having woken up due to the battle. After a few seconds though, he returns his gaze back to the chaos going on down below him. All throughout the battlefield, hundreds of creatures made of darkness can be seen running around while battling with thousands of creatures made of blood. Meanwhile, the princess tries to fight against the nightshade without much success since it's now hiding amongst the summons, occasionally jumping out and attacking her like a nightshade normally would do against an equal opponent. Unlike what it's been doing up till now, which it only does against weaker opponents. Satan specifically chose a nightshade as her opponent because of several reasons. For one, a nightshade has blood despite appearing to be made out of pure darkness, and so do its minions. Something that nightshades often confuse people about. So the princess's blood magic will work on them. For two, a nightshade is a summoner and stealth-focused combat specialist. They like to summon hordes of shades and hide amongst them while slowly whittling down their opponents, taking any chance they can to assassinate them if possible. Meaning the princess will be able to use that skill she has that lets her grow stronger from killing enemies. Lastly, nightshades are demons of the sin of pride, and pride demons are the easiest to force into a duel like this. Satan continues watching the fight as the nightshade occasionally moves in and deals a blow against the princess before backing away again before she can respond. A process that repeats itself over and over again, the princess's speed still not being a match for the nightshade's strongest capability. Even with her seemingly being finished preparing. Damn it, just how? His thoughts cut off when the princess still in her beast form suddenly raises her front two legs and lets out a loud roar, making a massive field of white energy appear out of nowhere in front of her. And as if they were puppets cut from a string, the shades inside of the field of white energy just collapse onto the ground. Then several more of these fields appear all around the wasteland as well. But Satan can't help but notice how her own blood summons are also falling to the ground and turning into nothing but blood when they touch the fields as well. Right. She has null magic. Satan feels a faint wave of relief fill him at that thought. Then he notices something he hadn't noticed before. Every time the nightshade strikes at the princess, the nightshade seems to flinch well, as if it was also taking damage alongside the princess. Satan's eyes widen as he remembers one particular skill the princess has. One that he had somehow forgotten about. The one that deals damage back to those who attack her at a fixed rate. With that skill, she might just pull this off. The Lord of Hellfire's son almost can't believe he actually thought that, even though he truly believes it. A child accomplishing what the Demon King failed to do. Killing a Class B while at Class 4. The mere idea is thought of as an impossibility by everyone, demon or human. With no exceptions to that rule outside of stupid idiots who end up dying in their attempt instead after pissing off a noble demon. But now a blood-leaking child of no older than 21 years old may very well succeed. And not just in killing a Class B while at Class 4, but killing a Class B while not even at the level cap of Class 4. A Class B who isn't even at the bottom of Class B. It's just absurd. And that's not even considering her new elemental shifting and manipulation skills. Something most nobles never get, much less a demon at Class 4. Satan begins to feel himself briefly questioning his common sense as he watches the princess continue her fight with the nightshade whose name he still can't remember. But then he blinks as he begins to wonder if His Majesty is watching them right now. Probably is. The Oni briefly glances over at the knights who he started to float into the air at some point just to keep their disabled selves out of the way of the battle. Then he focuses on the battle again right as the princess does something unexpected. She stops in the middle of the wasteland and seems to just let the nightshade score a direct hit on her. But not before she begins to glow with a bright red light. What is she doing now? I feel absolutely nothing as pain diffusion takes away all of the pain as the nightshade's claws cut a large chunk straight out of my back and through around my side. But on the other side of the coin, blood retribution and bloody thorns leave the nightshade screeching in pain as it hurriedly rushes back again while trailing along a trail of bloody steam. And after just half a minute, my wound fully heals, leaving me back to searching for the nightshade. This could work. Considering how much the nightshade slowed down after that attack in terms of its rate of attacking in general, it's either wounded and recovering slowly, or it's smarter than I thought it would be. But despite that, I continue to use blood retribution against it every time I sense it coming in for an attack, even if it's too fast for me to dodge. And every time it lets out a screech of pain. But at the same time, I know this won't be enough to kill it. At most, I'll be making it anemic. Not killing it. Especially a nightshade, whose blood is special in that its body doesn't necessarily need blood to run at all times. Sure, it'll die eventually without blood, but it can last quite a while without it. A random fact I learned at the university back when I actually went that I never thought I'd need to know. Not sure how that works exactly though. Don't really care either. The two of us continue our little dance with the creature, very gradually slowing down its speed. Almost to a point that I can actually keep up with it. By now though, the creature seems to be beginning to summon fewer and fewer shades to help it. Likely a sign that its mana is starting to run low, so it's preserving it. I on the other hand managed to use a mana potion to restore my mana, giving me an edge over the nightshade who is too. My thoughts are interrupted when I see a flash of blue light shining from amidst the shades, following which more shades appear. Oh. You spoke too soon, Tar comments. It used a mana potion too. How it managed to do that while lost in its sin is beyond me, but it did it. This battle might take longer than I hoped. I sigh at that before noticing the noble approaching again and letting the nightshade hit me right after using blood retribution. Then the whole process of its steaming blood happens again, following which it vanishes amongst its shades like an annoying pest. The battle continues on, but one thing is changing throughout it still. I grin as I see the nightshade finally slowing down enough for me to actually dodge it. But I don't dodge it. Instead I turn slightly, letting its claw pass harmlessly by me before I grab its arm and toss it, making it hit the ground only for the thing to immediately back away and vanish into a wall of darkness that appears out of nowhere. It's still accumulating plagues for days from me. The nightshade has to be in severe pain right now from the dozens of plagues the thing has. We continue our dance for quite a while, me switching back to taking all of its hits and using blood retribution. But instead of only taking the hits, I've also started attempting to counterattack the thing. To very little success. The nightshade is clearly still able to lucidly react, unlike the demons I've fought before who were lost to their sin. Then again, this is the first noble demon I've ever fought or seen lost to their sin before. So it might just have a different effect on them. Eventually, I just scowl and push Crimson Overdrive to the max, burning a massive amount of life energy that far surpasses the amount I'm stealing from the nightshade and its shades. Then I finally manage to return and attack by doing that when it next strikes, only to not actually do as much damage as I was hoping. I definitely deal damage, but only 5 claw marks that drag on across it, extending about an inch or so deep. A very much non-fatal wound that cost me who knows how much life energy to deal. That's incredibly annoying. After that I stop retaliating and instead focus on dodging its attacks when I can, since life energy isn't regenerated anywhere near as quickly as my body. So I just dodge and drain its own life energy instead for a while. This process continues on for what feels like hours as I gradually restore my life energy while trying to save up my mana a bit too. Because mana potions have a limit. A limit I know all too well. From my judgment, I should only be able to use a few more mana potions, and if this battle continues to drag on, I might end up in even worse shape than the last battle. Mostly because I won't have Gramps here to heal me, since he can't exactly come to Earth. And even if I ended up winning the battle through that, it's not exactly worth dying. It would be like winning the battle, just to lose the war. After all, what would the humans do without me at this point? They'd lose the war even with that 1-month window. Gramps would be pissed too. Oh, and Satan would probably be dead via angry Gramps. Good to see you haven't changed much since you fell unconscious, Tar says, sounding vaguely amused. Then he adds, and I'm glad to see you actually have a sense of self-preservation now. Sorta. Yep. Also, I'm very much not looking forward to when I have to feel all this pain later. It's your fault for fighting like that, Tar says with a snort. Blame Gramps for making the fighting style like this. No, I blame you for your skill set, Tar retorts, making me smirk as I duck under an assassination attempt by the nightshade that goes straight for my throat. Something it started doing when it was losing strength in its attacks and seems to be panicking, rushing to kill me. And making its attacks more sloppy. After a few seconds of pursing my lips in thought, looking at my total mana that is just a bit above 70%, and dealing with the surrounding shades, tearing them to shreds, I eventually jump backwards and let out a roar. I can recover with a potion after this. So let's see how it deals with Blood of Ruin. Blood of Ruin activates just like always, but this time it feels stronger than my previous uses. Probably because I leveled it up quite a bit in my fight against the Lunatic's mad army. Everything proceeds like normal with the power boost, the blood orbs appearing in the air, the spikes, the lines, but despite all of that, I find myself staring wide-eyed in shock as the nightshade actually comes out with just its arm from the elbow on being cut off. Somehow the nightshade managed to dodge almost all of the Blood of Ruin, with the lone exception of one big line that ended up destroying a large chunk of its arm up to the elbow. And even after watching the entire thing happen, I still can't figure out how it did it. By now, the entire area is filled with Blood of Ruin all over the ground, the knights having been brought up into the air long ago by Satan for their own protection. Which is ironic, considering his previous attempts to kill them. I pant in exhaustion while reaching for a potion before I gulp it down, restoring my mana to max capacity with the potion that cost more than an entire association. Then I take in a deep breath and begin chasing after the demon again, soon finding the noble to have slowed down a bit more thanks to its lost limb. And it also isn't attacking me as often. The two of us continue our little dance for a while, all the way till my mana goes back to a little above 70% of my capacity again, at which point I reuse Blood of Ruin. This time, the nightshade loses a large chunk out of its side, making a very dark black blood slowly flow out into the air. But just like with its arm, the wound seals up and he backs up again, slower than before. I barely manage to hold myself up as I reach for another mana potion and down the thing, restoring my mana again with another fortune. Then I push myself back to my feet and find the wound on the nightshade, who actually hasn't left my sight yet, starting to close up a little. At the same time though, the shades around us start vanishing, the creature's little army shrinking in the process, especially as my blood of ruin tears away at their feet from the ground. I glance at the nightshade's feet to find a barrier surrounding them, blocking the blood of ruin from making contact. For some reason, I feel as if I can't take another potion. As if my tolerance for potions was reduced. That's not good. I grit my teeth at the feeling of weakness all throughout my body before I quickly make a null magic field appear around the nightshade, disabling the barrier around its feet and making the blood of ruin start corroding them. But the noble quickly vanishes, turning into darkness, before it reappears outside of the field. We continue this little game over and over again until I realize how pointless it is, since the blood of corruption on the ground isn't condensed enough to do much damage beyond a minor burn. Scarlet, Tar mutters, sounding like he's growing afraid. And he has some reason to, since I don't exactly have much left to do. I pant in exhaustion before muttering, "To hell with this battle," and rushing straight at the noble again and activating Blood of Ruin once more. High above the battlefield, Noah slowly opens his eyes again, struggling to keep his attention on the battle as Amelia's daughter rushes forwards once more and uses that Blood of Ruin skill for a third time. But just like with the other two uses, it only deals minimal damage to the noble, even if this use hits it twice instead of just once. No. The Red Knight knows very well just from the sight of the girl who is covered from head to toe in blood, her beast form transformation having been forcibly cancelled as she stands in her lycanth form. She can barely even stand up straight, and he can sense the beginnings of potion poisoning coming from her. Despite Noah's demeanor, he knows very well how Scarlet is the last hope of humanity. If she dies here, then all of Earth is doomed, whether it's due to the demon threat taking them over or because of the Demon King's rage. Is this how the war is going to end? With a lost duel? One that I'm not even a part of? Noah grits his teeth, and out of the corner of his eye he notices almost all of the knights doing the same. Even the Blue Knight can be seen with the vaguest hint of emotion in his eyes. Something that shouldn't be possible. He and the other knights of humanity all watch on as Scarlet barely keeps herself standing, feeling exhausted, low on mana, and still faced with a noble in front of her. Even if the noble is missing an arm and a leg, with a chunk of its other arm having been lost. Silence fills the entire area as the two stand off against each other, the only noise being that of Scarlet once in a while killing one of the shades to keep up her kill streak skill. And the silence stretches on for what feels like ages to Noah. Then something happens that surprises everyone, including the nightshade. A large screen appears above them made out of blood showing their battle, directly beneath the demon moon. As if the Demon King wanted everyone to watch this. Right after that, Scarlet's eyes begin to glow even brighter. So bright that Noah has to squint slightly as the light shines all over the battlefield. And to Noah's absolute shock, all of the blood filling the entire battlefield, both blood of ruin and otherwise, floats up into the air as Scarlet coughs out a mouthful of blood with a determined and extremely pissed off look on her face. Noah feels his mouth dropping open slightly at the sight, but it doesn't stop there. All of the blood turns into what must be millions of blades, each filled with plagues and blood of ruin and even the blood from the demon moon, and all pointed towards the noble. With one last cough of a massive amount of blood, wounds opening up all over the princess's body from the overtaxing of her mind and body, she raises one arm and then drops it again. Sending all of the blades straight at the noble under the eyes of the knights and Satan, along with billions of other people all over the world who are watching through the screen. I feel my entire body ripping apart as I expend more of my life energy than I've ever used before empowering blood manipulation. And it's not just that. I also use up the power from the demon moon high in the sky to enhance it, along with the life energy I'm draining from the nightshade itself. All to control every last bit of blood in the area and enhance it, pointing it all straight at the nightshade. And as my body is ripping apart, wounds opening up all over from my life energy going down below any sort of healthy level, making it devour parts of my own body just to survive, I drop my arm, sending every last blade of blood straight at the nightshade. The nightshade lets out a horrific screech as it fails to dodge the attack, its body too badly crippled for it to do anything now, just like my own. So every last blade breaks through its already corroded skin and body armor, spreading plague after plague along with blood of ruin throughout its body. I feel my body weaken more and more throughout the process, but I continue standing strong despite it. It's at times like these that I'm really glad pain diffusion reached its max level. Still not looking forward to feeling this later though. I continue draining my own life energy to power the skill as blade after blade pierce into the nightshade, eventually turning it into nothing but a mass of discolored blood. Like a giant ball of corruption, having colors ranging from red, to black, to green, and even yellow, all in it. Rather disgusting if I'm being honest. Also probably enough to wipe out an entire city of millions of humans. At some point, blood literally begins to exit through the pores on my body, but I ignore it. Even after I feel a constant flow of blood coming from my mouth, nose, and even eyes, I still push harder. I won't stop until it is dead. Who knows how long passes as the orb of blood, all of the blades having just merged into one giant orb, continues to writhe and ripple as if devouring something. And throughout the entire process, I feel my body growing weaker and weaker, eventually leading to me falling down to one knee and supporting myself with a hand on the ground. Time continues to pass with nothing but the sound of writhing liquid mixed with the occasional screech coming muffled from inside of the orb. Eventually, my vision starts to grow blurry, then the edges become dark. And slowly, the darkness begins to spread inwards. Right when everything finally fades from view, I hear a ding echoing in my head, making a faint smile emerge on my face. And the last thing I hear is someone shouting my name alongside Tar's own voice as he whispers, "You did well, Scarlet." All over the world. Moments ago. Every last human and demon across both Earth and Tartarus watch on silently as the princess tears herself apart with her last attack on the noble demon. When they first saw the massive screen appear, they were shocked. But then their shock was overwhelmed by fear for their princess and for the humans' fear for the human race as a whole. Because they knew this battle would determine the fate of humanity. Both in the long run and the short term. Eventually, after the battle had extended on for a while, all of the humans and demons watching couldn't feel anything other than surprise. Surprise at how strong the princess had become. At the realization that she might truly have a chance at winning. And now, as they watch their princess tear herself apart, they can't bring themselves to say anything. Wound after wound continues appearing all over her body before she drops to one knee, barely supporting herself. All the way till the orb of blood collapses, and she too with it. But before the humans and demons can despair at their princess's inevitable death for losing the duel, a universal notification appears in front of them all, shocking them. Warning! This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de Arcaren has become the very first being in the universe to defeat a Class V being while at Class 4. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. Several seconds pass in utter silence, before every last human and demon all across the worlds roar out their excitement, making applause echo throughout both worlds. And for once, both the demons and humans are united in their excitement. For once, they share the same thoughts. Meanwhile, one demon floating high above the battlefield lets out a sigh, Satan not having expected this outcome when he proposed the challenge. But he at least knows that even if he will have to retreat, and likely won't get the chance to lead the demons against the humans again with the Reaper's planned arrival in several years' time and a lack of any other demon moons anytime soon, he will at least not be punished. And near that demon, all 5 of the Knights of Humanity show relief of their own, for different reasons. The White Knight lets loose tears as she silently cries. The Red Knight just grins for a few seconds before finally allowing the darkness to take him, making him lose consciousness at last. The Purple Knight just nods her head. The Blue Knight gives the barest hint of a smile for the first time in decades. And the Black Knight gives a short whoop of excitement before falling unconscious right away, just like the Red Knight. Within a castle on Tartarus, located high in the air above a vast ocean of blood, the Blood Calamity can't help but sigh as well. A sigh of relief. Then he grins and transforms into his beast form, at which point he lets out a loud howl that echoes throughout the bloody duchy. And just seconds later, every last blood leakin on Tartarus joins in the howl, even including the Demon King himself, filling all of Tartarus with the howls of the wolves of pride. Satan stares at his princess for a while, before eventually identifying her and finding her level having shot up to level 1000 from that battle. Meaning all she needs are the catalysts and requirements to reach Class V, and she'll officially be a noble. A 21-year-old noble. If someone so much as suggested that possibility before, I'd have written them off as stupid. After several seconds, Satan lets out another sigh and focuses on the knights he has flying with him as he raises his voice and uses his bond to connect with every last one of his demons. I will keep my promise. Everyone retreat. We are moving back to our own fortresses. The noble demon then glares at the unconscious Red for several seconds before turning his attention to the knights as a whole instead and saying, "You better thank the princess for your continued survival and freedom." Then he lowers the knights to the ground and just leaves them there, not bothering to heal them since he has no healing-related powers. They can get healing from other humans. And with that thought, Satan blasts off in a ball of hellfire, heading straight towards Demon Isle. In defeat. Less than 10 minutes after Satan leaves, Amelia senses a couple dozen human guardians approaching. But she still can barely even lift a finger, leaving her to just watch as the humans enter the wasteland that used to be the headquarters of the human military. Fortunately, the humans turn out to be the general of the military and several soldiers along with a couple ranking officers. And they all immediately set about healing Scarlet and the knights. At some point while they're treating them, Amelia senses a lot more people entering the wasteland, and she also hears the sounds of large vehicles moving into the wasteland. The soldiers then move them all to the vehicles and begin driving away towards another base that hasn't fallen, while still treating them all. Eventually, Amelia relaxes after hearing that Scarlet isn't in critical condition anymore thanks to Ava, otherwise known as the Bloody Valkyrie, who came to heal her with her blood magic, giving Scarlet some of her own life energy in the process. Time passes as the soldiers, doctors, and healer guardians all fuss around the knights, doing everything they can to return them to peak condition. And after doing enough to allow Amelia to sit up again, albeit with a lot of pain, the general walks up to her and bows slightly, saying, "On behalf of the humans, we thank you for fighting for us." Then all of the other people in the room do the same. After a few seconds, Amelia says, "If anyone deserves your gratitude," she turns to look at Scarlet, who is lying down on the bed next to her being attended to by over a dozen healers at once, including Class V healers. "We know, and will express our gratitude to her when the princess awakens," the general says, surprising Amelia with his calling her princess. Since Amelia knows that he never called her that before. Looks like Scarlet earned his respect with this. Amelia smiles sadly as she looks at her daughter, who is still covered from head to toe in wounds with some of her limbs having been ripped off entirely that are slowly growing back. Considering the Demon King's live streaming of that final attack to everyone, she maybe just earned the respect of the majority of the humans, even the ones that were against her. That thought has Amelia smiling a real smile. Then she turns to the general, her face growing serious as she asks, "How bad are the losses?" The general grimaces and answers, "All of the guardians stationed on the bases scattered across the front lines were eliminated with the lone exception of most of the Class Versus and half of the Class IVs who managed to retreat to a further back base. And the bases themselves were destroyed all the way past the midway point of the eastern continent, pushing the front line to the border of Asia and Europe." Amelia ignores the older general's usage of the continent's old world names as she asks, "And the civilians?" "We managed to evacuate the majority of the civilians from the cities beyond the front lines closest to the war zones, but a couple of the cities were taken over," the general says with a grimace. "At the very least the demons aren't treating the humans there badly from what we've heard, but we should work quickly to take them back." The general turns to one of his top officers and asks, "Please give the White Knight a full rundown on the casualties of the battle." A guardian Amelia only barely recognizes walks up and salutes before answering. We have lost a total of 410,105 Class 1 guardians, 200,001 Class 2 guardians, 62,500 Class 3 guardians, and 3,107 Class 4 guardians. He then grimaces and finishes, along with 7 Class V guardians. Amelia grimaces at those figures, especially the Class V guardians, because they were already outnumbered as it was on that level. Now the war will only be worse from here on out. The demons lost just as many as we did, but the majority of their losses were in non-sapient demons and are replaceable within the next several years through the gates, the Guardian continues, sounding extremely grim as he does so. But then his tone goes up a notch as he adds, on the other hand, over 200,000 Guardians of various classes managed to ascend thanks to the battle. This isn't good except for the ascended Guardians. We'll need those in the near future. Amelia turns to look at the healers as they finally finish working on healing Scarlet and all collapse on various chairs and beds surrounding Scarlet's. And at the same time as the general, Amelia asks, "How's she doing?" She then turns to share a look with the general before focusing on the healers again. She was very close to going past her potion tolerance, which made it difficult to treat her, the Bloody Valkyrie says in between exhausted breaths. But she'll be fine after a few days of sleep. Everyone in the room lets out relieved breaths, and the tense atmosphere in the room significantly decreases. If it wasn't for her regeneration, then she wouldn't have made it, but her regeneration is far stronger than any regeneration I've ever seen before, Ava says while pointedly ignoring the general's existence as the man glares at her, no longer worried about Scarlet. She'll also likely ascend to Class V soon and will need someone to explain the process to her. I'll take care of that, Amelia says as her own healers finally finish healing her too. I'm so glad she's okay. Amelia can't help but smile at that. And not even the unspoken war between Ava and the general managed to bother her. Although she is a little surprised, those two managed to stay in the same room for so long without going at each other's throats. Considering how they both made gender-exclusive associations, just to spite the other. In the end, Amelia just lies down with a sigh. Now we just need to deal with the aftermath. I wake up with a start, finding my eyes opening to the sight of a stark white ceiling above me. And at this point, I'm starting to wonder if this is becoming a nasty habit. Just waking up in a bed after going unconscious. It is becoming a nasty habit, and you should stop it, Tar suggests, making me look down to find him lying on my chest. Which I'm not sure is somewhere he should be right now, considering I was a patient lying on a bed. Then again, I feel perfectly fine right now. So he probably only lied down on me after I was healed. Yeah, he answers my thoughts, making me smile for a second before I pat him on the head. I sit up and glance down at what I'm wearing. Which is the same thing I was wearing under my armor before. A shirt and shorts with a jacket. Guess no one changed me. That's good. Then again, they could just have someone using some sort of cleaning skill on me, and I wouldn't need to change or anything like that. No idea how long I've been out though. Looking around, I seem to be in some sort of medical wing of a military base. Considering the sleeping soldiers. I get out of bed while activating my armor, making a swirl of blood cover me for a moment before it appears on me as usual. Then I transform into blood and leave the room without letting anyone know that I even woke up. You aren't going to tell anyone you're awake? Tar asks, sounding curious. No, best that I don't. Not before checking my notifications and messages. After all, there's a decent chance I got a universal notification or something, and I want to know about it before talking to anyone. Well, you did get a universal notification, but I'll just let you check it out for yourself, Tar says, confirming my thoughts. Time to see what's up. Level 1089 Nightshade defeated. An enormous EXP bonus is awarded for killing a creature over 100 levels above your level. A massive EXP bonus is awarded for killing a creature above your class. 1000 skill points are awarded for killing a creature of Class V while at Class 4 without help. 500 skill points are awarded for burning several times the amount of life energy you have for the use of a single skill. 300 skill points are awarded for controlling over 5,000 times your own body weight in blood all at once. 100 skill points are awarded for spreading hundreds of different plagues to a single being all at once. 50 skill points are awarded for controlling several different types of blood all at once. 2 skill points are awarded for killing a Class V. Congrats, you have leveled up to level 987. 5 free points have been awarded to you and your stats have been updated. Congrats, you have leveled up to level 1000. 5 free points have been awarded to you and your stats have been updated. Congrats, you have leveled up to level up cancelled due to you being at the cap of Class 4. Please ascend to Class V. To do so, you must find and absorb 5 Class 4 catalysts, have 10 skills at their max level, have at least 3 legendary skills, have at the minimum Predator 3, and have almost died at least once. Rare Epic Inherent Skill Beast Transformation will now evolve into the legendary rarity Inherent Skill Beast Transformation while retaining any previous effects. There is no cost in levels due to the skill being static. Skilled Blood of Ruin has leveled up to level 26. Skilled Blood of Ruin has leveled up to level 30. Skilled Null Magic Field has leveled up to level 28. Skilled Null Magic Field has leveled up to level 30. Skilled Blood Nullification has leveled up to level 20. Skilled Blood Nullification has leveled up to level 26. Skill Rain of Blood has leveled up to level 18. Skill Rain of Blood has leveled up to level 24. Skilled Blood Transformation has leveled up to level 11. Skilled Blood Transformation has leveled up to level 18. Skilled Blood Manipulation has leveled up to level 11. Skilled Blood Manipulation has leveled up to level 26. And the skill level ups just keep on coming, making my jaw drop at the sight of a large majority of my remaining inherent and achievement locked skills reaching the max level. Then my eyes narrow on the notifications that follow, deciding to put off considering the requirements to ascend till after I read them. Warning! This is a universal notification. Scarlet Ard Esker de Arcaren has become the very first being in the universe to defeat a Class V being while at Class 4. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. Yeah, that one is to be expected. Although I find it interesting that it didn't mention the etched skill slot. Yeah, that's odd, Tar mutters, only to go silent when a system message appears after that first notification. Congrats, you have received 2 etched skill slots for being the first being in the universe to kill a Class V before reaching Class V yourself. Oh. Guess that's why. Speaking of, when do you think I should start making my skills etched skills? Wait until you get mythical skills, Tar answers right away. Apex Predator doesn't count since it's not etchable. Right. So wait till I have my best skills and know what I want to etch. Right, he says with a nod of his head as I finally reform myself on the roof of the base I find myself in. Since etching a skill grants the skill a boost, even if you aren't planning on having descendants, you want to etch your best skills to help them the most. Makes sense. I let the notifications continue, including the ones I had suppressed from before my battle with the Class V. System notice. User has completed 6 out of 7 of the necessary achievements in order to obtain a title-bearing, redacted, skill. The achievements they have completed include the following. Reach Class 4 while under 20 years old. Defeat a being 150 levels above you without any assistance. Reach Class 4 within a year of having been initiated into the system. By being the descendant of the Demon King who is the original etcher of the skill blood domain or having obtained an inferior version of the skill yourself. By having both blood magic and null magic or being descendant from a user with them that has etched their skills. By defeating a Class V being while still not being Class V yourself. Complete the final achievement in order to attain the title-bearing, redacted, skill. Okay, that one is still very interesting to see. I'm curious about what the title will end up being. Although the last achievement should be obvious. To get Blood Domain. Since this is obviously an upgrade to Blood Domain, I should have the skill in the first place. Moving on. System notice. User has completed all of the necessary achievements in order to unlock a mythic skill. The achievements they have completed include the following. Have blood regeneration. Be a descendant of the Demon King. Nearly die over 100 times within a year. Regenerate from damage directly to your reality all the way to a full recovery. Have at minimum Predator V. User may now purchase the mythic skill Lycanthropic regeneration whenever they wish. Yeah, saw that one too. Next. System notice. User has completed 4 out of 6 of the necessary achievements in order to obtain a title-bearing mythic skill. The achievements they have completed include the following. Having at least 2 blood plague-related legendary skills. By spreading hundreds of different blood-related plagues to a single being all at once. By spreading plagues throughout entire armies, contributing to the slaughter of millions of beings through blood-related plagues. Having both blood magic and null magic or being descendant from a user with them that has etched their skills. Complete the final 2 achievements in order to attain the title-bearing mythic skill. Why do I get the feeling that I know exactly what the title is going to be for that one? Because you probably do, Tar says with an amused snort. The next notifications are rather confusing though. System notice. Anomaly detected. User's inherent skill, Beast Transformation, is branching from its designated genetic path. Searching for possible solutions, no solutions found. The inherent skill Beast Transformation will now branch away from the designated path of the Beast of the Apocalypse and towards a new path. What the heck does that mean? It means you can't get your grandfather's etched mythic skill Beast of the Apocalypse anymore, Tar explains, sounding rather shocked. Then he pauses right as another notification appears replacing the notice. System notice. User has completed 7 out of 10 of the necessary achievements in order to obtain a title-bearing, redacted, skill. The achievements they have completed include the following. Reach Class 4 while under 20 years old. By having both blood magic and null magic or being descendant from a user with them that has etched their skills. Having the skill Beast Transformation. Defeating a Class V being while still not being Class V yourself. Having the Apex Predator title and mythic skill. Having the ability to directly manipulate blood. Having broken out of the bounds of the system before. Complete the final 3 achievements in order to attain the title-bearing, redacted, skill. Another one? That's a surprise. That's seriously all you have to say about it? Tar exclaims, sounding flabbergasted. I just shrug. Meh. He groans. Now. On to the very last notification. System notice. User has completed 4 out of 7 of the necessary achievements in order to obtain a title-bearing mythic skill. The achievements they have completed include the following. Having reached Class 4 before turning 20 years of age. By nullifying the curse of a Class V being while at Class 4. Having both blood magic and null magic or being descendant from a user with them that has etched their skills. By having gradual corruption nullification. Complete the final 3 achievements in order to attain the title-bearing mythic skill. There we go. And if what Tar said before was true, 2 of those 3 should be nullifying the poison of a Class V being while at Class 4 and nullifying the disease of a Class V being while at Class 4, and nullifying a certain amount. Which means I'm gonna have to go find a Class V demon or guardian to poison me and give me a disease. Then I'll go to the Arctic to find poisonous and curse-filled undead to fight against. I highly doubt I'll be getting the Class V catalysts anytime soon after all, so I have time. On that note, it's annoying that the shades didn't give me any SP. But at least I got plenty from the achievements, so it's fine. At least I won't have to continue spending all of my SP on leveling gradual corruption nullification to the max level. Because that would be a pain. I take in a deep breath before holding it for a second and then, with a grin, opening my skills store with it set to only show legendary and mythic skills. Skill name. Achievement requirements. Descriptions. Classifications. SP price. Lycanthropic regeneration. See notification. the most powerful regeneration skill of the species, known by many as the Alphas of Pride and the original etched skill of the Demon King. All users with this skill are capable of regenerating from almost any wound as long as they still have mana. The skill also significantly increases their mana regeneration. Active. Achievement locked. Mythic. 120. Vampiric Ascendancy. Unlocked by killing a being far more powerful than yourself through allowing it to mutilate you in return for taking damage itself without any assistance. Unlocked by killing a being with a skill empowered by a vast amount of that being's own life energy, by being class 4 or above, by using several legendary or rare berserk skills that cause damage to oneself during use, by having used blood magic to kill over 1 million beings within 2 years, by losing yourself to a curse, and by having blood magic. This skill temporarily transforms the user into a vampiric creature who gains power from the blood of others. While under the effects of the transformation, the user will have an intense bloodlust, making them struggle to hold back from drinking any blood around them. In return, the user gets power from all of the blood they drink, along with an immunity to poisons and the ability to eat anything while transformed. All blood drank increases the regeneration, physical strength and speed, magical power, and maximum mana capacity for the duration of the transformation. Active. Legendary. 60. Scarlet Aegis. Unlocked by killing a being far more powerful than yourself through allowing it to mutilate you in return for taking damage itself without any assistance, by taking enough damage to both your reality and body to kill a normal being at your level over 100 times over, by coming closer than most could survive to death at least 10 times within a single year, by being known by many as a protector of an entire race, and by having blood magic. This skill allows the user to create a barrier made of blood that protects the user. The barrier can be set to completely surround the user's body right outside of their skin or be created in the air as a shield. Active. Legendary. 60. Oh. Wow. That's a lot of legendary skills. There are about 7 of them after I focus on the ellipses. And at this point, Tar just doesn't say anything anymore, which I find amusing. Looking at my status, I currently have a little over 2,000 SP to spare. So I go on a spending spree, buying up all of the legendary skills along with the mythic one. And even after doing all that spending, it only costs me 540 SP in the end, which leaves me 1547 SP left to spend on leveling up those skills. Or at least, the skills that aren't achievement-locked skills that were etched by Gramps or Leonidas, which do number a few. After leveling them all up, I bring up each and every one of the new legendary skills descriptions, starting with the 3 achievement-locked skills and moving on to the 4 purchased skills. Blood control. This skill allows the user to directly control the bodies of other users whose level is at least 200 beneath their own. However, they may not alter the target's mind in any way. Healing reversal. This skill allows the user to reverse any healing the target has undergone within a certain span of time, dependent on how much mana is spent. Princess's Decree. This skill allows the princess of the demons to issue commands to any demon. These commands must be obeyed if the demon being commanded is 100 or more levels beneath the user. Bloodwell. Keep. This skill allows the user to make a special storage within their own blood that they can store anything non-living in. Vampiric Ascendancy. This skill temporarily transforms the user into a vampiric creature who gains power from the blood of others. While under the effects of the transformation, the user will have an intense bloodlust, making them struggle to hold back from drinking any blood around them. In return, the user gets power from all of the blood they drink, along with an immunity to poisons and the ability to eat anything while transformed. All blood drink increases the regeneration, physical strength and speed, magical power, and maximum mana capacity for the duration of the transformation. Scarlet Aegis. This skill allows the user to create a barrier made of blood that protects the user. The barrier can be set to completely surround the user's body right outside of their skin or be created in the air as a shield. Eldritch Blood. This skill allows the user to transform any of their blood spilled outside of their body into eldritch monsters made of corrupted blood plagues. Of the skills, Blood Control is obviously the legendary version of Leonidas's Blood Dominion, meanwhile Healing Reversal is the legendary version of Amelia's Reverse Healing, which I'm not too sure what the difference between the two is, and Princess's Decree is the legendary version of the Demon King title-bearing mythic skill Gramps has. Although I'm guessing it changes based on the gender of the user, otherwise I would find it rather amusing to see Leonidas's skills list. Of the skills, Princess's Decree and Bloodwell Keep are both passive, while the rest are active. They're also both static, while the others aren't as well. Unfortunately, the only ones I can level are Vampiric Ascendancy, Scarlet Aegis, and Eldritch Blood though. Since the others are all either achievement locked or static skills. Thanks to that, I end up raising those 3 to level 20 each, leaving me with 236 SP remaining. I stare at my status for several seconds before deciding to just go for it and raising Vampiric Ascendancy to level 25 with 235 more points, leaving me down to just a single SP remaining. Alright. That should be it for all of the changes. On that note, I pulled out requirements system message back up again to look it over. Congrats, you have leveled up to level up cancelled due to you being at the cap of class 4. Please ascend to class V. To do so, you must find and absorb 5 class 4 catalysts, have 10 skills at their max level, have at least 3 legendary skills, have at the minimum Predator 3, and have almost died at least once. Looking over the list of requirements, I already completed all of them but the 5 catalysts. Although I find it rather surprising by just how difficult those requirements are. Since if it were anyone else other than me, they'd actually have some difficulty with 2 of those. The 10 skills at their max level especially. Even I only have 11 skills at their max level right now, if we don't count static as max level. The system doesn't count static skills in it, Tar answers, proving my point. In fact, most people wouldn't be able to get a purchased skill to its max level right now, since a purchased skill's max level is 50. And my highest leveled purchased skill is level 30. My inherent and achievement locked skills on the other hand are why I pass the requirement with their max level of 30. Well, you have to remember that lower rarity inherent skills are easier to level up than all of your legendary inherent skills, even though you've been blowing straight through leveling them up anyways by almost killing yourself over and over again, Tar says, sounding more than a little indignant in that last part. But I act like I didn't notice. I can hear your thoughts, remember? I still act like I didn't notice. Tar snorts, but I quickly turn my attention towards the side of the roof, where I find someone appearing out of nowhere. Black. The man waves with a faint smile on his face as he begins walking over to me. Wonder what he's doing here. Hey, a little pup, he says, still smiling. Although I can tell that he doesn't have as much enthusiasm as this personality normally has. Looks like you're awake. Did you sleep well? I look him over for a second, finding it a little hard to match the battered and beaten image I have of him during that battle with his image now as I answer, yeah. You look worse for wear. Even though he physically looks better, he just doesn't seem to have that same spark he had before. And I know he's not in his psychopath personality right now, so that means something's up. He nods his head, his smile turning slightly into a grin. But then he sighs, his grin fading as he mutters, guess there's no point hiding it. He meets my eyes and crosses his arms. I owed you 2 favors as I stated a while back, but you never tried to cash in on it. Not until I offered to help send you to Tartarus, and we both know how that went. But now a hint of sadness emerges in his gaze. Now you've saved my life and I still haven't finished paying back my debt. So please, let me do something to pay you back. I frown at his words, only now understanding just how important paying back debts is to Black. Then I shrug and answer, I'm not the type to ask for help from others, so unless you have some sort of poison and disease-based magic, then I don't think there's much you can do to help me right now. He blinks before tilting his head slightly and saying, I do have both a poison and disease-based skill. Silence fills the rooftop for several seconds before I mutter, oh. Come to think of it, he's an assassin. It makes at least a little sense that he'd have a poison skill. The silence stretches on for a while until I eventually ask, deciding to act like that didn't happen, then that'll work. Please use the poison skill on me without holding back. He looks surprised but does it without question anyways, making my eyes widen in surprise before I immediately start diffusing all of the pain and focusing on using gradual corruption nullification. And the skill ends up taking quite a bit longer to nullify the poison than I would have expected, leaving me sitting here nullifying it for nearly an entire hour non-stop. Almost forgot how weak I am without those stacks of bloodthirst active. Makes me wonder how long it would have taken to nullify it with those stacks active. After finishing nullifying the shadow-based poison that I still don't understand how works, I open my eyes, finding myself sitting on some sort of chair made of shadows. Interesting. On that note, the system notice reappears with the achievement filled in. Although the achievement doesn't give me any SP, irritatingly enough. Anyways, I turn to Black and ask, next up the disease skill. He nods, seeming rather surprised that I managed to nullify the skill as fast as I did. Then he raises his hand, making strange and disgusting-looking snakes of shadows begin crisscrossing through the air towards me, before entering my skin. Right away, I see my skin taking on a darker and darker skin, getting blotches of black and green all over as I quickly begin nullifying the disease. But the disease proves to be stronger than the poison, so it ends up taking me longer to do. I manage to do it though, so I eventually open my eyes again to find the system notice reappearing again with just a single achievement necessary. And this achievement doesn't require me to be class 4 to do, right Tar? You're right, Tar answers, making me smirk slightly. Which means I can set about now to get those 5 catalysts. On that note, what are the class 4 catalysts? Your grandfather told me that they are, of course, the class 4 cores and class 4 magical ores. Tar answers before adding a rather surprising answer, but the last one is, instead of hearts this time, you need the entire reality of a level 1000 being for each catalyst. Wait, their entire reality? We need souls? Seriously? Yes, Tar answers, sounding incredibly serious. Remember that the ascension to class V is finishing the process of merging reality and your body entirely. So the catalysts have to be as powerful as entire realities to do that. Right. That. This ascension is going to be very unpleasant. It will be, Tar agrees before adding, look at the bright side though. You won't ever have to eat, sleep, or do any sort of daily necessities anymore after reaching class V. Since your body won't really be mortal in that sense of the word anymore. It'll be your reality and body in one. Wait, no daily necessities at all? And no more having to stuff my face with food? Okay, I'm looking forward to this now. It's too bad that I can't just use pain diffusion for it. I grimace at the thought of pain diffusion and the pain I'm gonna have to feel at some point within the next couple weeks. You should probably spread that pain out, Tar suggests, making me nod my head in agreement. Anyways, I thank Black before the man vanishes in a veil of shadows. And right after that, Red appears next, making me wonder if he was just waiting there for us to finish or something. The man walks up to me and actually bows his head, saying, "Thank you for saving my life. I am in your debt." Oh. Right. Almost forgot the man was about to die when I got there. So I kind of did save his life. If your pride will allow it, I have permission from the Demon King to gift you these, Red says while handing me 5 different glowing red shards that has my eyes widening slightly. He said that you would have absolutely no issue clearing mere class 4 fractures, so there's no point making you get these catalysts yourself. Not when you've already killed a class V. He raises his head with a light smile on his face. The first real, non-sadistic smile I've seen on the man's face since meeting him. Don't you admit that killing a class V was more than enough test to reach class V? To my surprise, my pride doesn't actually burn at this. It even lets me reach out and absorb the cores into my body, following which I get the usual system message about me being able to ascend. Red then grins and bows his head once more, before leaving. And without missing a beat, Blue arrives after him. Okay, seriously. Is this just a parade of the knights or something? Blue simply walks up to me after arriving in a splash of water and says, "Ask for my help 3 times, and I will assist you." Then he nods his head and turns around, beginning to walk away. I blink in surprise at how abrupt his words were before shrugging, deciding that it's normal for him. What isn't normal though is how he pauses after taking a few steps, glances behind himself at me, and opens his mouth to say, but he doesn't say any more than that. He just looks slightly unsure for a second, something I've never seen from the psychopath before he turns around again and says, "Never mind." Then vanishes in an orb of water. Oh, what just happened? I don't know, Tar mutters. Several seconds pass in silence as I stare after him. Oh, I forgot to mention, but Blue's been acting stranger and stranger over the past year or so while you were in your coma, Tar says, confusing me even further. What do you mean by strange? He started acting unsure of himself at times, and seems to be showing the slightest hint of emotions every now and then, Tar answers, making me openly gape at the spot the man was just standing. That's a surprise. Did Zavandra let go of his emotions or something? That would be out of place for her if she doesn't have anything to gain from it. After all, he woke her up. Well, Tar begins only to pause. Then he starts again, it's possible she may have let go some of them. Enough for him to regain his emotions back over time. But why would she do that? Did you ask her to do it while I was in my coma? No, but your grandfather mentioned that you wanted to return Blue's emotions to him while you were in a coma, Tar mentions right as I sense another presence appearing on the roof, making me turn to find Purple appearing with her eyes closed, just like they almost always are. That was nice of him. From what I know of Zavandra, if Gramps mentioned it, she would at least consider letting go of some of his emotions. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if she did. After all, letting go of only some of his emotions and letting him slowly come to realize everything he's done while not having his emotions is probably a lot crueler of a fate than just giving him them all at once. And a mad mind-eater would probably find that option appealing. Blue slowly returning emotions aside, I focus entirely on Purple as she stops a meter in front of me and Tar. Then she just nods her head and says, "Should you ever need my assistance, simply ask." Without another word, she vanishes, her body clearly having been a projection. These nights sure don't talk much, Tar mutters, and I can't help but nod my head in agreement. You're not wrong there. And as expected, the last of the nights arrives without any fanfare, just appearing in front of me with a smile on her face. One that's somehow sad, proud, and happy at the same time. Not sure how she pulled that off. She doesn't say anything for several seconds before eventually saying, "I'm glad you're okay." I give her a faint smile back along with a nod of my head. Silence once again fills the rooftop before she eventually raises her hand with some sort of orb on it and a very familiar voice echoes out of it. "Scarlet. How are you feeling?" Leonidas asks, his voice filling the rooftop with both worry and excitement. "That's good," he says with a relieved sigh before adding, "and I doubt your grandfather would be satisfied with me telling him. Just come to Tartarus after you've ascended and tell him yourself." He pauses for a second, only to continue with a slightly stressed tone of voice, "He's been antsy since you fell unconscious again." Tar snorts at that this time, meanwhile I just raise a brow. Why do I get the feeling he's been bullying his nobles and Leonidas? Because he probably has been, Tar answers while seemingly trying to hold back another snort. Won't that tax the reality energy in the gates and fractures? Are you really sure you're fine with me wasting some of that energy? I ask, curious about this decision. Because that's not something he'd overlook. I know that for a fact. Leonidas answers, sounding more than a little happy, "Father hasn't told the nobles yet, but he's been preparing new laws to deal with the loss of humans as an EXP source for a while now. So I'm pretty sure he's basically given up on the war by now, leaving it entirely up to the Reaper's judgment." Seriously? Lucius is in charge of the war effort now. Wait, does that mean he's going to be coming to Earth? I ask, my eyes widening at the possibility. "We can talk about the war later," Leonidas says, his words going serious again. "I'm sure Scarlet wants to get to her ascension, so we should give her some space for that." The smirk fades on Amelia's face as she sighs, briefly looks like she wants to hug me, and then says, "Yeah, okay." I purse my lips for a second, considering about whether I should let her hug me or not, only for her to say, "Good luck, sweetie," and vanish without another word, not giving me time to react. "So, are you going to ascend now?" Tar asks while moving through the air, to stop right in front of my face. "Yeah, I will. Time to become a noble." This time I set up the portable bath I got from Gramps in my own room, since it's far better than any baths we have here on Earth. Something that I have Leonidas and his blood runes to thank for. And unlike the other times I've ascended, I just go right into it, not hesitation one single bit. Confirmation received. Ascension to Class V will now begin. Then, just like the ascension to Class 4, that extremely uncomfortable and also painful feeling returns. The one where it feels like my body is covered entirely in paper cuts. But unlike with the ascension to Class 4, this time the pain grows more and more and more all the way till it gets close to the amount of pain I felt when I had my reality damaged by that lunatic undead kitsune from before. I scream until my throat goes hoarse, all while the lovely soundproofing of the bath keeps my voice from anyone in the base. Because unlike on Tartarus where blood lichens are aplenty, at least at the Bloody Duchy, there isn't anyone at this base that can hear through the soundproofing. The pain continues on for who knows how long, but thanks to my battle with the lunatic, which wasn't much of a battle if I'm being honest, I managed to at least think mostly straight through the process. Which goes to show how my pain tolerance is developing. Not sure if I should be proud of that or not, but meh. I continue screaming despite my thoughts going on a tangent, trying to distract myself from the pain. And eventually the pain finally fades. Then it's replaced by a bone-chilling cold that has me stiffening up in the hot bath, feeling like everything around me is nothing but ice. But in just a few seconds, it changes to a boiling heat that has me rushing to turn down the temperature of the water to freezing, only for it to turn bone-chilling again. And as I can't help but feel tears run down my face at this, I rush back and forth, turning the water freezing cold back to boiling hot to combat the feeling. After who knows how long it eventually ends, leaving me sighing in relief as everything returns to normal. Is it finally over? As if mocking me, I suddenly feel a strange sensation begin under my skin that has me raising my bare arms above the water to find it beginning to ripple a little. Then little red pockets appear. And just like when I use blood boil on enemies, little bubbles of blood begin popping all over my skin. Little bubbles that hurt far more than they really should. And as if that weren't enough, the bubbles soon start to explode, sending tiny little droplets of my blood flying to pierce into the walls of the bath around me, literally destroying the walls until the self-repair feature repairs them. But from what I sensed with blood manipulation, those droplets of blood continue until they slam into the walls of my room, leaving dents in the heavily enforced walls. Then the draining sensation starts. Like something is life draining me. I slowly begin to feel like I'm losing all my energy, leaving me sinking into the bath, unable to move. And by this point, I just want it all to end. Just a little more, Tar mutters, sounding both scared and worried, and even a bit hopeful right about now. Everything just stops out of nowhere. All of the bubbles exploding on my skin, the life energy draining, and even the pain. And without missing a beat, I feel my eyes widening as I suck in a breath, seeing black spots appearing over my skin along with purple, green, blue, and practically every sickly color under the damned moon. Then more bubbles start appearing and the life energy draining repeats itself, just with the bubbles exploding to send what I can only assume is plague-infested blood everywhere. And all at once, everything stops again, leaving me slumping on the bottom of the bath while panting in exhaustion, my skin returning to normal. At the same time, the anemic and slightly starved look my body was taking on from all of that suddenly reverses as I feel my body filling with energy. Like I'd taken some sort of wonder drug of something. But I just continue panting in exhaustion despite the energy, even as system messages appear in my vision. Ascension complete. User is now Class V. Congrats, you have leveled up to level 1001. 10 free points have been awarded to you and your stats have been updated. Congrats, on account of ascending to Class V, your stat multipliers have been increased by over twice the previous amount. Congrats, on account of ascending to Class V, your stat gain per level for physical have been increased. Congrats, on account of ascending to Class V, your stat gain per level for mental have been increased. Congrats, on account of ascending to Class V, your stat gain per level for magical have been increased. Your species has changed from 87.5% blood Lycan, 12.5% human, to 99% blood Lycan, 1% human. Your species is now cemented and will no longer change. 200 skill points are awarded for ascending to Class V. Spend them wisely. 500 skill points are awarded for ascending to Class V within 5 years of being initialized into the system. Spend them wisely. 500 skill points are awarded for ascending to Class V while less than 30 years old. Spend them wisely. Epic Rarity Inherent Skill, Metallicized Blood Claws and Epic Rarity Inherent Skill, Metallicized Blood may now merge and evolve into the Legendary Rarity Inherent Skill, Metallicized Blood, while retaining any previous effects it may have had at the cost of losing 2 levels. Epic Rarity Inherent Skill Partial Shift will now evolve into the Legendary Rarity Inherent Skill Partial Shift, while retaining any previous effects. There is no cost in levels due to the skill being static. Epic Rarity Inherent Skill Blood Empowerment, Epic Rarity Inherent Skill Life Absorption, Epic Rarity Inherent Skill Blood Absorption, and Epic Rarity Inherent Skill Blood Aura will now merge and evolve into the Legendary Rarity Inherent Skill Power Drain while retaining any previous effects it may have had at the cost of losing 2 levels. You have earned the Mythic Rarity Inherent Skill, Bloodborne Apocalypse. I blink in surprise, just staring at the system messages, and more specifically, at the Mythic Inherent Skill, for who knows how long. Eventually, I turn to look at Tar with a tired smile on my face and ask, "You still need to eat your tail?" Tar just stares at me for a few seconds before, to my surprise, bringing his tail to his mouth and eating it. Without seeming to feel any pain. Because why would an avatar feel pain? I snort and lie back down in the bath, staring up at the ceiling. Class V. Finally here. I continue lying here for a while, before eventually deciding to check out those notifications that also appeared with the system messages. Because I hear knocking on my room's door, probably meaning that either someone was bothered by my screams or I got a universal notification. Either one would probably do. Anyways, the notifications. The first one is as expected. Warning. This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de R. Karen has obtained an etched skill slot through reaching Class V under the age of 30 years old. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. Same with the second one. Warning. This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de R. Karen has obtained an etched skill slot through reaching Class V within 5 years of being initialized into the system. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. The third one isn't one I necessarily expected but knew might be a possibility. Warning. This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de R. Karen has obtained an etched skill slot through becoming the youngest being to ever ascend to Class V. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. And the last one is a little surprising. Warning. This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de R. Karen has obtained an etched skill slot through being the first being in the universe to get a mythic skill from Class Ascension. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. Which brings my total number of etched skill slots to 10. Which is more than I really need if I'm being honest. You do know that most people would strangle you for that casual dismissal of etched skill slots, right? Tar points out, but I ignore the tanuki that just ate his own tail. And regrew it in moments. Speaking of etched skill slots, might as well use a couple of them. Since I now have 2 mythic skills that are actually etchable. I think of etching both Lycan's Regeneration and Bloodborne Apocalypse. Please confirm that you wish to etch the skill Lycan's Regeneration into your DNA. Please confirm that you wish to etch the skill Bloodborne Apocalypse into your DNA. I quickly say yes to both, following which I feel a stabbing pain all over that doesn't last long. Skill etching is now complete. You now have 9 etched skill slots remaining. Lycan's Regeneration has now been granted an etched boost and will be passed down to all of the user's descendants should they have any pre-etching, the most powerful regeneration skill of the species known by many as the Alphas of Pride and the original etched skill of the Demon King. All users with this skill are capable of regenerating from almost any wound as long as they still have mana. The skill also significantly increases their mana regeneration. Post-etching, the most powerful regeneration skill of the species known by many as the Alphas of Pride. All users with this skill are capable of regenerating from any wound as long as they still have mana. The skill also significantly increases their mana regeneration. Skill etching is now complete. You now have 8 etched skill slots remaining. Bloodborne Apocalypse has now been granted an etched boost and will be passed down to all of the user's descendants should they have any pre-etching. The user sends a Bloodborne Apocalypse throughout their surroundings targeting any the user deems as enemies. The apocalypse includes the boiling of the target's blood, spreading of every plague capable of being spread by the apex predator, the draining of the target's life energy, and upon the popping of any bubbles of blood, the further spread of the apocalypse through projectiles made of their blood. Post-etching, the user sends a Bloodborne Apocalypse throughout their surroundings, targeting any the user deems as enemies. The apocalypse includes the boiling of the target's blood, spreading of every plague capable of being spread by the apex predator, the draining of the target's life energy, and upon the popping of any bubbles of blood, the further spread of the apocalypse through projectiles made of their blood hardened into blood metal. Oh? That's nice. It listed the changes so I can compare them. Looks like the only change in Lycan's regeneration is that it removes the word almost from the capable of regeneration from almost any wound part. Which means I'm probably capable of regenerating anything now, no matter what. Although whether I get the time to regenerate it or not is a different matter entirely. As for Bloodborne Apocalypse, reading through the description of it makes me think it's exactly what happened to me during my ascension. So it's dangerous as hell for my targets. Especially if thousands of enemies end up sending those projectiles everywhere, just like I did. I can't help but suspect that it'll cost a lot of mana to use though. Now that the etching is done though, I focus on the last notification. Which is just one more requirement being fulfilled on that title-bearing mythic skill that I'm pretty sure is going to be the Warden of the Red Plague. Just a simple reach Class V achievement. Easy enough. Tar snorts at that thought but stays silent. Well, the knocking is getting louder now. So I should probably finish up my bath. Despite that thought, I continue lying here for a while, before eventually getting out, putting on my clothes, and activating my armor. Then I finally dismiss the bath altogether and move over to the door where I briefly glance myself over, finding my hair still wet, and open the door to reveal a rather worried and somehow also impatient and annoyed-looking general standing behind the door while tapping his foot. Howdy, I tell him with a light wave of a single hand, stuffing my other one in my pocket. He opens his mouth to say something, only to close it again. Then open it. Then close it. Then open it. Finally, he decides to give up on whatever he was gonna say, and instead says, "Hello, Your Highness." I blink in surprise, before lowering my hand and tilting my head as I ask, "Did you hit your head or something?" Because that's definitely not something the general I know would say. He would be getting into an argument with me right now. Also, I think I just saw a vein pulse on his forehead. Or maybe I'm just imagining that? Does that actually happen outside of TV shows? Where a vein on someone's forehead pulses out of anger? Or is it just fiction? Might also be that my senses are strong enough now to really pick up on things like that if it does happen. I think Tar begins, but I just shrug, deciding it's not important, making him trail off instead of finishing whatever he was gonna say. Anyways, my thought tangents aside, the general takes a deep breath and then says, "Congratulations on making it to Class V, Scarlet." Ah, he's calling me my name again. Scarlet, is it just me, or are you acting a bit more carefree now? More like how you acted when we first met, Tar comments, making me frown for a second before shrugging. Almost like the curse doesn't have as strong a hold on you now that you're Class V. It's possible. But I'm me no matter what, so I don't care all that much. As long as I don't end up losing myself to my sin, or something like that again. Because that would suck. Putting that aside for the moment though, I do wonder just how strong I am now. I really want to go test it out. Miss R. Karen, the general says, making me briefly wonder if he's just trying out different things to call me at this point. Please don't destroy our training facility. If you wouldn't mind, go find your mother and ask to use hers or something. I find my jaw dropping open at that. Tar just laughs. Rude. In the end, I do as the general suggests and find Amelia. Which doesn't take very long, considering I can smell pretty much anyone and everyone within a very large radius around this base, not to mention hear everything. A rather unpleasant factor of my advancement, only dampened a bit by the fact that I have more control over it. Since I can lower my sensitivity. Good thing too, considering the fact that base or not, we're still near the front lines. Even if there's a ceasefire right now. And battlefields don't tend to smell very good. Anyways, the main reason I managed to find Amelia though, is probably because she's not hiding herself. So the moment I arrive at the cliff she's staring out from, she turns around and smiles at me, saying, "Congratulations on reaching Class V, Scarlet." I give her a nod of appreciation and a brief, "Thank you," then I move on to ask, "Would you mind if I used your training facilities?" The general doesn't want me breaking his. Then everything turns white around us, leaving me stumbling slightly from the sudden change. What the I mutter, only for us to appear in some sort of dome at the top of a tower in the middle of the ocean. I quickly walk to the edge of the tower to get a better view outside, and for as far as my Class V enhanced vision can see, there's absolutely nothing but ocean. Just water, water, and more water. Holy shit, this is. It actually looks pretty beautiful, Tar comments, making me blink for a second before I nod in agreement. It's currently dawn outside, so the sun is rising. And the sight of the dawn in the middle of the ocean is rather breathtaking. I smile a little at the sight. Yeah. It is beautiful. I don't think I've ever seen the ocean at this time of day before. And the only times I crossed the ocean on Tartarus were when I was crossing the Bloody Duchy with the help of those bodyguards, which I kind of wonder where are now, and when I was being chased across the ocean by the lunatic. Neither really gave me time to actually enjoy the beauty of the ocean. And neither were at dawn either, considering Tartarus's inverse day and night cycles. Several seconds pass in silence as I look out into the ocean, before I smile even brighter. "What's up?" Tar asks, landing on my shoulder. "Nothing much. Just thinking about everything that's happened over the last years. About my trip to Class V." I reach up to pet him as Amelia walks up beside me to look at the ocean and says, "This is my tower." It is a really nice location for a tower, I have to admit. "Well," Tar begins, responding to my thoughts before Amelia spoke as his gaze focuses on the horizon as well, "you have been through a lot." "Yep. And I'm sure I'll be going through even more in the future. Although hopefully I won't be tortured again by another lunatic." Tar doesn't snort at that, instead showing a dark expression on his face that tells me that I probably shouldn't joke about that subject. "You mentioned before that the last requirement according to the prophecy to upgrade gradual corruption nullification is to just use the skill a bunch." "Yeah," Tar says, his mood shifting again now that the topic has changed. "I can't say the exact amount, but you have to nullify a certain amount of corruption." "That's not bad. I'm assuming there's no time limit? No requirements on that either?" "You assume correctly," Tar says with a nod. In that case, I should probably head to the Arctic. Since undead often love their corruption. That's also where most of the spider demons are too, and those love corruption just as much. Maybe even more, considering the Arachne. Although the place will be tougher to handle, since a lot of undead don't have blood. Which will limit my offensive capabilities by quite a bit. Then again, some of my new upgraded and merged skills should be a large help with that. I smile at the thought of the merged skills. Something that doesn't happen often. On that note, I open my status and stare at it for a bit. But with my rare and lower rarity skills hidden, since my status is starting to be a little full. And only after I distribute my free points. Name, Scarlet Art Esker de R. Karen. Species, human/blood Lycan hybrid. Magic, blood. Titles: The Apex Predator. Age, 21. Level, 1001. SP, 1201. Stats: Physical, 3048. Mental, 3048. Magical, 3047. Physical/level, 5. Mental/level, 4. Magical/level, 5. Free points, 0. Mana, 32, 505, 396/32,505,396. Free points/level, 10. Active skills: Bloodborne Apocalypse. Skill level, 1. Description: Pain Diffusion. Skill level, 30. Description: Null Magic Field. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood of Ruin. Skill level, 30. Description: Metallicized Blood. Skill level, 28. Description: Power Drain. Skill level, 28. Description: Blood Nullification. Skill level, 26. Description: Rain of Blood. Skill level, 24. Description: Blood Transformation. Skill level, 18. Description: Healing Reversal. Skill level, 1. Description: Blood Control. Skill level, 1. Description: Beast Transformation. Skill level, Static. Description: Partial Shift. Skill level, Static. Description: Blood Swarm. Skill level, 22. Description: Gradual Corruption Nullification. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Plague. Skill level, 30. Description: Crimson Overdrive. Skill level, 30. Description: Vampire Ascendancy. Skill level, 20. Description: Scarlet Aegis. Skill level, 20. Description: Eldritch Blood. Skill level, 20. Description: Blood Shadow. Skill level, 20. Description: Blood Retribution. Skill level, 20. Description: Passive skills: Lycan's Regeneration. Skill level, 1. Description: Blood Manipulation. Skill level, 26. Description: Princess's Decree. Skill level, Static. Description: Apex Predator. Skill level, Static. Description: Bloodwell Keep. Skill level, Static. Description: Bloodthirst. Skill level, 30. Description: Bloody Thorns. Skill level, 30. Description: That is one monster of a list of skills, Tar mutters, sounding more than a little flabbergasted. I just smirk at his response. And my total mana, it very nearly tripled from its previous amount. Somewhere between 2 to 3 times its previous amount. A very nice benefit to reaching Class V. Not to mention the new stats per level. It is a nice looking status. The two of us stare at it for a few more seconds before I close out of it and return to staring at the ocean for a little while. Then I eventually turn to Amelia and ask, so where's the training hall? It's time to test out my new power. And then I'll be trying to advance gradual corruption nullification. Because I will end this war. Amelia smiles as she watches her daughter testing out her new power on the devices in Amelia's training room. A training room far more advanced than any she's sure her daughter has ever seen before. Simply because it combines Earth technology and blood runes, with work combining the efforts of the greatest magi tech engineer on Earth and the greatest enchanter on Tartarus. And the sight of her daughter's new power that would win out over demons of over 50 levels above her makes it impossible for Amelia to stop smiling. She's grown so much. Amelia continues watching her daughter for several minutes before her happy and proud smile finally begins to turn into a sad one. It's still not enough though. She's going to have to go through even more if she wants to save the universe. That thought leaves Amelia feeling dread. But unlike with the start of the prophecy, she can help her daughter this time. And that's just what she's going to do. I won't let Scarlet die. No matter what. Amelia clenches her fists at her sides. Even if I have to sacrifice my own life to save her. Throughout the universe. On the other side of the universe from Earth, a planet named Ares, full of turmoil, stands on the edge. One that is home to humans and various species of demi-humans who have mutated over time into strange variations on humans, many of whom include elves, whose magical power is greater than humans, dwarves, whose physical strength is greater than humans, and halflings, whose dexterity is greater than humans. Meanwhile, the Grand Council, led by the Council of the 3 demi-human races, leads the war against the human races who vastly outnumber them in sheer population. But the majority of these beings are no further than Class 1 in their ascension. Even the leaders of the Grand Council stand only at Class 3 in power. And out of nowhere, in the middle of a large battle between the Grand Council and the United Nations of Humanity, a loud sound akin to glass shattering echoes around the entire world, making the conflict stop in an instant. Above the planet, under the eyes of all of the humans and demi-humans living on it, strange cracks begin to appear in reality itself. And within these cracks, nothing but the pitch-black void can be seen. Silence fills the planet for several minutes, only broken when strange creatures start falling out of the cracks in the sky. Creatures that look like eldritch abominations made of nothing but bug parts, carapaces, and tentacles. First it starts with just a few across the planet spanning cracks. Then dozens more. Eventually an entire swarm of creatures, all of Class 1 at minimum, begin to flood out of the cracks, causing mass panic throughout the planet. The strongest beings on the planet quickly rush out to fight the creatures, but they quickly find something strange about them. None of the creatures have any life force to absorb after killing them. This quickly decreases the motivation of the planet denizens fighting against them. Until they begin seeing Class 2 creatures leaving the cracks as well. Much larger creatures over twice the size of the first. And their newfound motivation turns into panic when the Class 3 creatures start to swarm over the planet. Soon enough, the planet becomes completely overrun by the void creatures, with the planet's last hope being killed by the first Class 4 creatures that pass through the cracks. The planet is then left in silence after just a single week of invasion by the void creatures. Unbeknownst to the fallen planet's former denizens, a single pitch-black eye radiating an evil light begins to crack open on the other side of the crack, only for it to close again as the creature it belongs to realizes it is impossible for it to cross through the crack just yet. And thus begins the invasion of the void. Meanwhile, on a planet known as Tartarus situated halfway across the universe from Ares, the witches all open their eyes as they begin glowing with an eerie light. And without a moment's hesitation, the Demon King appears in front of them right when each of the witches begin chanting, their words echoing throughout the entire world. Prepare yourselves, for the gaze of the void has landed on the universe at last. The void will spread its corruption throughout the universe, tearing apart world after world until its gaze finally lies on the demons within the decade. Prepare yourself for destruction, for the only hope of the demons has yet to grow. Prepare for the end of Tartarus. The Demon King grimaces at the news, despite knowing that it was coming. At the same time as the witches, the Purple Knight of Humanity starts her livestream, her own eyes glowing purple as she states, "The next era has begun. The void is coming. Prepare now, or all shall be lost. Prepare now, Wolf of the Blood Moon, for you are the last true hope for the universe." And all across the universe, various prophecies are told to every last planet with sapient life powerful enough to reach Class 3 for their seers. Some with the same level of detail as Purple and the Witch's prophecies, most with far fewer details. But all with enough to cause panic across the worlds. Meanwhile on Tartarus, the demon lords grow tense as they consider the ramifications of this on themselves and their own clans. On Earth, the knights of humanity all show various different reactions, each considering the effects of the prophecy on the war, and on who the Wolf of the Blood Moon is, without a single one not being able to guess their identity. And Scarlet simply narrows her eyes as she pauses in her testing of her new powers, faintly surprised by the timing but not by the events currently happening. Chaos reigns on both planets, but far more so on Tartarus than on Earth due to the shorter time frame for them than the humans. And finally, the Demon King turns his gaze to space around the planet, his eyes narrowing. Then the chaos grows more when the planet suddenly shudders, the Demon King raising both of his hands, expanding his blood domain around the entire planet and beginning to move the planet itself away from the direction he senses the void creatures. But all across the universe, everyone recognizes one thing. The old era has come to a close, and a new one has begun. An era of the end. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Hello everyone, I am Megumi Faltz here with the latest war update. Megumi exclaims with a bright smile on her face and her microphone held to her face as she stands next to a board with a screen showcasing the current state of the front lines. As you all know, it's been 2 months since the ceasefire ended and the war resumed, and since then, we've been seeing a vast improvement in our own side of the war thanks to our beloved princess. On the screen, the millions of viewers around the world can see video of the apex predator and princess to both the demons and humans charging through the undead in the Arctic, tearing them limb from limb with ease, all while not even getting so much as a scratch in return. Then the screen shifts to show her causing pandemonium on the eastern front lines against the demons there, the 22-year-old girl transformed into her quadrupedal beast form and tearing the demons to shreds without even an ounce of hesitation. And to top it off, thousands of blades made of the blood of the very demons she is tearing apart repeatedly tear into the other demons, with the only pause in the chaos being the few times a Class V demon tries to push her back only for her to vanish again after transforming into blood and merging with the blood raining down all over the battlefield by her own skill. She then reappears again somewhere else on the battlefield to continue fighting the Class 1 through 4 demons in order to give the vastly lower number of guardians a break. The apex predator is the youngest known Class V being on both Earth and Tartarus, beating out even the Demon King himself, and she has been the crux of our battle against the demon forces that have only grown since the event commonly known now as the Night of Blood that kicked off the true demonic war. Megumi continues before the screen repeatedly changes from one recording of Scarlet battling to another. Then it starts showing her older recordings from before she had reached Class V, including clips from her battles in the ranking tournament back when she was Class 1, the first clips of her fighting in fractures, clips from her time in the annual interschool tournament, and even clips from the very first fracture she contracted in. While the class versus of Earth have been recovering alongside the majority of the rest of the Guardians, the apex predator and the Knights have been holding their own against the demon threat. A threat that has only grown over the ceasefire as the demons completely replaced all of their losses with the sole exception of the class versus through new forces from Tartarus. Megumi pauses with a grin. But the Knights aren't who we're here to talk about. The screen suddenly changes again to show an intimidating image of Scarlet standing in her Lycan form covered in blood with her eyes glowing amidst the blood rain falling down around her. And then another image appears alongside it of her standing there looking even more intimidating in her bipedal beast form, and then another in her quadrupedal form. Finally, one last image appears where she is simply standing on a rooftop with her hands in her armor's pockets while looking out at the night sky above a city. We're here to talk about the apex predator and only the apex predator. The focal point of our side of the war, the granddaughter to the Demon King, daughter to the White Knight of Humanity, and the one many believe to be our hope against the approaching void invasion, Megumi says, her voice getting more and more excited as she continues. And to start things off, here is a man some of you may know as the leader of Scarlet's old team, the Druid. A man wearing a black and green set of Magi-Tech armor that looks somewhere between a business suit and a set of armor with half a cape going down behind one shoulder starting underneath one of his pauldrons steps into the view of the camera. He has black and green hair with vibrant green eyes and a piercing gaze that matches his outfit, and has the mana level of a Class 3 Guardian. "How are you doing, Druid?" I've heard your team is the current most likely to win team in the upcoming interschool tournament, so how do you feel about that? Megumi asks as a black seat rises from the floor alongside a long counter, with another seat appearing near Michael, letting them both sit down. I'm doing well, but we'll see how the tournament goes when it actually happens, he says with a light nod of his head, resting his arms on the counter. Megumi smiles at him and winks, just as humble as the rumors say. The neutral expression on Michael's face almost breaks at that, but he just keeps looking ahead without giving anything away about his current feelings. Then Megumi leans forward and asks, "What do you think about Scarlet Art Eskerda Karen? She was in your team a while back at the same class as you, but has now advanced all the way to the peak of humanity. Do you have any comments on that?" "I think she deserves all of her fame and power," Michael says with a slight crease to his forehead. "She's gone through far more than most people do, even if she was given the etched skills of her bloodlines. So she more than deserves the power. And as for how I feel about her personally?" He pauses for a second while glancing at the screen, then back to Megumi and the camera again. "She's one of my best friends, and the others in my team all agree with that sentiment fully." Megumi instantly grins at that and claps once, saying, "Excellent." It's always a sad thing when former teams, and even current teams, end up having bad blood due to jealousy, so it's great you and your team aren't like that. Then she leans forward once more, a smirk stretching across her face. "But on the subject of your team, have you heard the rumors online about you?" Michael's eyes widen slightly at that, indicating that he did. But he just asks, "No, I haven't." The man simply remains calm and answers with a light shake of his head, "That wasn't the case. It was entirely a matter of coincidence." Megumi's grin grows a little more at that reply, but she decides to let it go and move on as the screen behind them changes to show clips from years ago, back when Scarlet had to work with Silver in the fractures she entered. Then she looks at the camera and says, "Well, you've heard it here, everyone, those rumors of the druid being a flirt are nothing more than rumors. But now that we've cleared that up, how about we bring in our second special guest? You all known him as Silver. A Class 4 Guardian from the Silver Association. The same association as the apex predator." Silver walks into the view of the camera, joining the two and taking his own seat, the man's silver hair having grown long as his now equally silver eyes occasionally spark with bits of silver electricity. "So Silver, how did you used to feel watching Scarlet as her senior member of the association?" Megumi asks while tilting her head ever so slightly. The man in question just shrugs and answers honestly, "I was rather upset that I had to babysit a newcomer to the association." Megumi smiles, having fully expected the man's bluntness. Which was part of why they decided to invite him to the show. That, and she couldn't get a meeting with the apex predator herself, considering how famous and important she is now. "So you felt like a babysitter? But how did you feel when watching the rookie you had to babysit shoot straight past you?" Megumi asks, her hands resting on the counter now. Silver once again answers honestly, "I didn't really care beyond the relief that I wouldn't have to babysit her anymore." The show's host blinks in surprise as she almost blurts out what, in surprise, but manages to keep her silence. "I was not expecting that. Then again, he doesn't show up on media much, so there isn't all that much data on how to speak with him." "Really? That's a good outlook to have," Megumi says with a nod before moving on to the next question. "I still wish I could have gotten the apex predator herself to come here. But I understand she's busy. Probably off killing demons in the Arctic or the Eastern Front right now." Megumi takes reassurance from that thought as she and the two famous guardians in front of her continue talking under the view of the camera. I let out a lazy yawn as I continue lying down in the middle of a frozen wasteland in the Arctic while letting the zombies around me take turns chomping on me. All Class 4 zombies, of course. And only with me periodically cutting my arms with my own claws to open up wounds for them to get into. Seeing as they can't actually pierce my skin and all. It's a good thing these undead are almost all unintelligent. They make for a rather nice boat of corruption to get that achievement with. Although I will admit, lying here letting mostly dead things chomp on me and infect me with viruses all day for the past few days has been more than a little boring. I'm pretty sure you'd be labeled as a weirdo with a strange fetish if the internet saw this, Tar mutters, but I ignore him. There's nothing wrong with sitting here grinding achievements from non-sapient demons. Most people wouldn't cut open their own skin to let said demons infect them with viruses, Tar retorts quietly. I act like I didn't hear him. More importantly, just how many freaking viruses and diseases am I going to have to cure anyways? Tar doesn't say anything for a second while looking off to the side as if I didn't just ask him a question. I know you heard me. He sighs and turns to me before pausing a second and eventually answering, you need to cure instances of corruption from 1,000,000 different beings. I sit up straight in an instant after hearing him, sending the zombies piled on top of me flying high up into the air until they leave the sight of normal humans as my gaze locks on the furball. You mean to tell me I've been wasting my time here letting zombies chomp on me? I exclaim. Tar stays silent for a second and meekly answers, not entirely. Right. Because the infections each counted as one different being, right? Yeah. Tar exclaims, suddenly a lot more motivated. I grab the furball in an instant and throw him into the air too, while standing up with a huff and looking around at the remaining zombies nearby. None of whom haven't already bitten me at some point. So I wave my hand, sending needles of blood straight through each and every one of their skulls and into their brains. Then I expand the needle to explode, destroying thousands of heads as I begin to walk away from the clearing of zombies. I guess it isn't entirely Tar's fault, considering how he only arrived recently from his 5-day-long meeting with the other Fey Royals about the void threat. But he could have at least been more specific on what the achievement required. The bright side is that, if the past several days are anything to go by, I've at least cured the corruption of 1/10 of the number of beings necessary for the achievement. Although it's rather hard to keep track, so I might be wrong about that. I briefly glance up when I find the zombies I sent flying finally returning to view of a normal person's vision. And without hesitation, I move straight to the other side of the frozen wasteland to avoid the rain of zombies that end up splattering into piles of gore on the ground. Then I continue walking through the frozen wasteland with my armor back on, it having been taken off to let the zombies actually reach my skin, leaving me in just normal clothes. Good thing the zombies only cared about attacking the open wounds I made, otherwise my clothes might have been damaged. I look up again when I see Tar leisurely floating back down towards me. Welcome back, I tell him, not upset anymore. He just huffs. I glance at my terminal as I search the surroundings with my ears for more non-sapient undead, only to pause for a second. There's no reason to look for non-sapient undead if all I need is for each one to infect me once and nothing more. Any undead will work for that. So I just begin heading towards the closest group of undead, which isn't much of a challenge, considering how the Arctic is practically full of the things. Filled to the brim. Undead are like that after all. They multiply and generally win through quantity over quality, with vast amounts in each horde. A fact that makes finding corruption to cure rather easy. Or at least, a lot easier than it would be otherwise. Just have to go from horde to horde, letting each undead in the hordes infect me. Only problem is that the sapient undead tend to run at the sight of me. Which is rather rude. But even that's fixable simply by using Princess's Decree. A rather handy skill that lets me order them to infect me. I'm pretty sure that wasn't what the Demon King had in mind when he etched the Demon King's rule skill, Tar comments, pointing out the Demon King's likely thoughts on the matter. Meh. Anyways, I do wonder when I'll be able to talk to Gramps next. He's been absolutely against me heading to Tartarus ever since the whole Void invasion thing, and since he's busy doing something right now, he wouldn't say what he won't even accept calls. Which is very unlike him. He's the strongest being in the universe, so he'll be fine, Tar says, reassuring me. The Voided Overlord still can't cross into the universe yet and won't be able to for nearly a century, so there's nothing to worry about right now. Yeah, guess you're right. I continue walking for a little while before reaching a rather large glacier. One that I sense quite a few undead just hanging out inside. Time to get infected some more. I swear, my days have become rather boring lately. And whose fault is that? Tar comments, making me glance at him for a second before facing forwards again. Yours for telling me the requirements of the achievement. He doesn't respond. I smirk. Anyways, undead ahoy. I stand at the top of a mountain covered in snow, somewhere on the eastern continent. From what I understand, this mountain used to have a name. One that was lost along with a lot of other names for landforms and continents. Mostly because tourism kind of became a dead thing that didn't happen anymore. If I remember correctly, it was called Mount Everest. But what's more important to me than the rather nice scenery of the mountains is the sight of the army of demons who are moving through the mountains thinking they're being sneaky. Are you sure they're there? I can't see anything, Alan mutters as he narrows his eyes while also using some cloaked drones flying high above the ground to search. I glance at Alan, then back at the demons. Okay, maybe they are being sneaky. You're just a cheat with your senses, Tar points out, making me purse my lips. Maybe. Maybe not. Anyways, I answer Alan while crossing my arms. They're using some type of shadow magic to cloak themselves, with some of them using fire and ice magic to hide their biological signatures. And some other magics that I don't recognize from this distance. I see Alan glance at me out of the corner of my eye before he shrugs and says, well, you're gonna be dealing with them yourself anyways. So go ahead. That has me grinning slightly before I jump off of the cliff we're on and transform myself into blood. Then I control the blood making up my body to fly through the air all the way till I reach them. None of the demons are saying a word, staying completely silent as they move. And all of them are close to the peak of Class 4. To my disappointment though, there aren't any class versus amongst their numbers. Throughout my time in the war since it started back up, I haven't run into any noble demons above level 1100. Not even Satan has shown his face since, which probably has something to do with him having lost his position as the head of the army. I do wonder whether the Reaper will be heading to Earth as they'd planned after all, considering the Void invasion. But right now, he can't come, and they only have a couple hundred class versus on Earth. Which still outnumbers the Guardians' class versus by over twice as many. That thought has me frowning slightly as I reform myself on the ground right in front of the demons, not really putting my care on them despite their obvious fear at seeing me. It's the princess. How did she find us? All hail her highness. Please don't kill me. I blink at that last one, finding my gaze turning to a small demon in the corner. One that's no larger than Tar, and is even fluffier than him. Some sort of cat? I identify the demon. Demon General Subspecies, SPHYNX, level 1000. Well, that's interesting. And if I'm being honest, adorable. I kind of want it as a pet, but I also know it's a sapient creature and not really a pet. Anyways, as I'm thinking about this, I wave my hand, making chains of blood appear from blood chains that I then manipulate myself with blood manipulation to grow stronger. And if that weren't enough, I use blood metallization on the chains to turn them into blood metal, completely binding the demons as I frown, raising a finger to tap my lips in thought. What do you think, Tar? I think it's adorable, but you probably shouldn't keep a demon as a pet, Tar says, sounding more than a little amused. Then again, you're a demon, so people might be okay with it. Especially since you have Princess's Decree. But that won't work on the kitty. It's too high a level. Tar appears in the air and sends me an incredulous look as he asks in my mind, did you just call the demon a kitty? Yes. That I did. Got a problem with it? He blinks, then shakes his head, answering, no. But I still find it bizarre how you don't like dogs, despite being a blood Lycan. Hey. My species has nothing to do with my tastes in animals. Dogs barking is one of the worst things in the world. Wolves are cool though. Because they don't bark, Tar says with a sigh, having heard my spiel before. Yep. That they don't. Cats are a lot quieter, so I like cats. Unless you count foxes as cats. Then I don't like them. Kitsune ruined them for me. Actually, I believe foxes are considered canines, not felines. Tar points out something he no doubt learned while watching TV at the base. Something he started doing from time to time out of boredom. Really? That's kind of surprising. Also, how long are you just gonna stand here pondering over cats and dogs and foxes, while holding these demons in chains? Tar asks, sounding like he's more than a little amused by the situation. Oops. Well, these demons are all mostly too low level to actually give me any EXP. And there aren't enough of them to give me a 10,000 kill boost in EXP either. So I don't really see a reason for me to kill them. Might as well just hand them over to Alan and let the people at the base interrogate them. You do know they're just gonna call you in and ask for you to interrogate them instead? Tar says with a snort. Ugh. I don't like that sort of work. Even if it mostly just comes down to me telling them to answer questions, and them immediately answering them only to prove that they don't know anything important. A rather boring process. I finally look back to find Alan beginning to catch up with me. Then I look back at the SPHYNX and tap my lips once more while tilting my head slightly. Maybe Alan will want the kitty? Delrin clenches his fist slightly as he narrows his eyes, the noble foxkin's nose twitching slightly at the scent of blood leakin. Then he glances at the two nobles next to him, one of whom is currently covering them in an illusion to hide them from the princess. Meanwhile, the other spreads a corruption through the air that devours their sense entirely as an added measure. It looks like Her Highness took the bait, Delrin states, keeping his voice as quiet as possible even with the illusion up. Roxanne nods her head without pausing in her spreading of the corruption, and Xylotl nods his head while waving his hands around, constantly constructing and improving upon his illusion. The group of nobles all find themselves tenser than they have ever felt before in their lives as they mentally prepare themselves to go up against the princess. The apex predator. They were all handpicked by the sub-commander of the army on Earth, the leader of the succubus clan, Lily Del Rose, to recapture the princess and bring her back to Tartarus. And not just for the war effort, but for the sake of the demons themselves. Remember, we're allowed to harm her just enough to bring her in, Delrin states. We cannot seriously injure her in a way that she can't recover from, and if she brings out her crest then we have no choice but to back off. Both of the lower-leveled nobles nod their heads, but neither of them show any sort of deference to Velrin. Because all three of the nobles are the same rank of barons, even if Velrin was put in charge of the mission. The princess's exact power is largely unknown, but we know that she can't take on nobles above level 1175 since she retreated when fighting Baron Valruth last fortnight, Delrin continues, his voice still a low whisper as the three nobles begin to slowly make their way over towards the mountains. The two of you are to cover our traces until we manage to get as close to her as possible before I link the gate to her and teleport the princess back to Demon Isle. The nobles don't say anything in response, but Velrin knows that they heard. Just that neither the Mirage Wyrm nor the Arachne would to lower themselves into acting like subordinates. Let's go, Velrin declares, and the group of three nobles immediately speed up a little. Scarlet. I tap my foot as I look up at the full moon high in the sky, wondering how long it's gonna take for those three nobles to get here. Despite what they think, I found them a while back. The moment they arrived, in fact. The senses of a blood leakin are just way too powerful. Something the changelings and traitors amongst the humans learned over the month of the ceasefire, when I simply cleared them all out myself with my hearing and smell alone. A rather boring process, if I'm being honest. And there were more traitors amongst the humans than I thought. Whether they were people betraying us to the demons to be turned into a demon themselves through infection by a powerful undead demon or people just hurting the war effort for their own profit. Ever since then, things with the war have proceeded rather smoothly. Especially with the changelings out of the way entirely. From all of the human cities instead of just the supply storage from before. The sub-commander of the demon army wasn't exactly very happy about that though. The one that replaced Satan. And that woman. I feel a chill run down my spine at the memory of meeting her. A very unpleasant memory. One that makes me extremely glad I stayed the hell away from the Valley of Illusions, back on Tartarus, the times I was on the planet. Succubus are scary. And not in a powerful sense, I mean in a creepy sense. And supposedly Lily is one with her sin held in check rather well. But despite that, the look she was sending me sometimes, as if she didn't even realize she was doing it. Another shiver runs down my spine at that as I glance at Alan, who is currently taking away the Class 4 demons I captured, along with the kitty who Alan decided to take in at my insistence. As long as I use my power drain skill on it and Amelia uses her null magic on it to limit its power down to that of an actual cat. The kitty is fine with the decision too, since it means it won't end up locked up and interrogated. Apparently the thing actually has a lot less sapience than I thought it had. Just about the sapience of a child, although not a human child. He even acts like a cat. I don't really like the idea of the kitten ending up dead or in a cell locked away, so this is the best situation. The kitten aside, I turn my attention back towards the sky again. Speaking of power drain, that skill's probably been one of my most useful skills over the last few months. One that lets me absorb the life energy, blood magic attacks below epic rarity, and a small amount of mana from targets, lets me put the life energy and mana into my own skills to increase their efficiency and power, and lets me passively decrease the stats of those I designate as enemies by a very small amount. Come to think of it, I wonder if I can drain the mana from the illusion skill that demon has set up over their group. I purse my lips slightly at that thought before shrugging. Doesn't really matter, considering that I can still hear them, despite the illusion. And I have to admit, it's a little awkward. Considering how they're planning how they're gonna sneak up on me and teleport me to Demon Isle before I realize what's going on. Well, either way, I should deal with them. Delrin counts to 3 in his head before initiating the plan and teleporting straight through the trees across a mountain to appear right in front of where he senses the princess at. All while the other two cover his traces and even put up an illusion of him somewhere else to distract the princess. But what he finds when he tries to link the personal portal gate he made to the princess is the distinct lack of a princess nearby. The hell? He quickly looks around in confusion. Because he can sense that the princess is here, but he doesn't see her and he can't find her presence despite sensing her for some reason. Then Foxkin's eyes finally lock on a drop of blood floating in the middle of the clearing. Without hesitation, he immediately tries to teleport away from the clearing, only to find blood raining down from the sky, making a burning sensation begin filling him from the princess's plagues. And one of the plagues, a terrifying one known to many of the demons in the demon army by now, starts draining away his mana. Particularly, the mana he means to use when trying to activate a skill, making the skill activation sluggish. Which leaves him to staring up as the blood merges to form the princess as she floats in the sky, no doubt using her blood manipulation to make herself fly. Then her eyes begin glowing even brighter than they already are with a red and black light with hints of purple mixed in, the light reflecting off of the blood rain with the dark red clouds filled with blood above them blocking out any light from the sky. Just a single identify of the princess sends a shiver running down Delrin's spine, despite his level being 181 levels higher than her own. Apex Predator, Blood Lyca and level 1010. Shit, I need to get out of here. The princess slowly grins as she glances in the direction of the other two nobles, both of whom Delrin senses running away. Because why would they stay there to help him? None of the three are combat-focused nobles, even if they outnumber her. And the very fact that she's their princess means they can't kill her if they want to remain amongst the living themselves. Then the princess turns her attention back to him as she mutters, "Let's see what this can do on nobles." Delrin's eyes widen with fear as her body leaks a faint red light with the black and purple glow from her eyes shining brighter. And immediately after that, he feels his body growing increasingly uncomfortable as his skin turns red and bubbles begin to form. Then he feels plagues building up all throughout his body, making it incredibly difficult for him to concentrate on teleporting. The foxkin coughs out a mouthful of blood consisting of various different colors, none of which are natural, as he falls down to his knees. And his sensitive hearing picks up the other two nobles doing the same. Delrin grits his teeth and tries to push himself back to his feet, focusing on his skills once more in order to teleport out of there. But then he feels plague-ridden blood begin surrounding him, spinning in a giant sphere with him at the center and only a small air pocket. One that vanishes within seconds as he feels chains made of blood locking him down. Chains he can't fight against on account of not being a physical-focused demon. No. The foxkin feels his teleportation blocked after the princess tosses a strange box into the blood and then crosses her arms high above him. How is she? Delrin's thoughts slowly grow more and more sluggish as the plagues fill his body from head to toe, and soon enough, his own blood begins leaking out of his pores, his eyes, and his mouth to join the sphere around him. Until no more blood is in his body. And right before the noble's mind goes dark one final time, he has a single thought. One filled with hope. Please, princess, save the demons, save the demon king. Scarlet. I frown after clearing away the blood. Because while I managed to kill the foxkin, the other two nobles got away. Even after using bloodborne apocalypse. Then again, that skill was made for large groups of enemies. After all, the blood plague bullets it shoots out don't exactly harm the ones that are firing the bullets. They're meant to harm others around them. A pity, but I managed to deal with another one of the demon nobles. That should put some more relief on the front lines. And it was a spatial magic user too, which makes me extremely glad that I took that magi-tech item made by Alan's father with me. The one that interferes with the spacetime around the area, making teleportation almost impossible unless they're a higher level than the one who originally helped Alan's father to make the item. Honestly, that item really is groundbreaking. Then again, it figures that the genius who invented magi-tech in the first place would somehow come through and invent a brand new, groundbreaking device during humanity's lowest hour. It's classic after all. I glance in the direction that the other two nobles vanished in, not finding any signs of their travel in the process. Which makes sense. After all, while I could find them when they were first here, that was because they were here. They still specialize in this sort of thing after all, so there's no way they'd leave traces to follow. Although, I'm still rather curious about why they bothered to try kidnapping me out here in the middle of nowhere, through an ambush. It just doesn't make sense and risks their own nobles in the process. Normally Lily wouldn't be that reckless with her plans. A few seconds pass as I consider their plan before eventually shaking my head and heading back to the base after storing all of the foxkin's blood in my blood storage. I still have other matters to attend to right now. No use worrying about that. I'm begging you, could you please just leave a corpse fully intact for the researchers? Just one will do, the annoying nuisance of an annoying pain in the ass researcher in front of me says for the fourth time as I sit in the chair in the middle of a lovely courtyard located at a home I bought with the money I've been amassing. A nice, large house standing at 4 floors and bordering on a mansion with a large swimming pool in the backyard. I shush the guy with a scowl while glancing down at Arya, who is sleeping on my lap with her head and shoulder resting against me, making sure he didn't wake her. Then I look back up at him and tell him, quietly, of course, I've told you this once and I will tell you again. I will not waste the blood of the demons I kill, much less nobles. Despite their attacking of us, they are still sapient beings and shouldn't have their corpses defiled for experimentation. The guy just won't learn. I'm already fighting on the side of the humans and killing the demons that I'm technically a princess of. So I'm not just gonna go and let the humans experiment and treat the demons I kill as nothing but lab experiments. That would just be cruel to the demons who practically worship me. Besides, their blood makes for good fuel for my skills, and I know the demons would be happy to know that their blood is being used for my skills even if I kill them. A few of them have even said it to me themselves. Which was kind of creepy. Yeah, Tar mutters, sounding creeped out as he no doubt remembers those bizarre times. But please, Lady R. Karen, the full corpses of noble demons would advance, the nuisance continues, making me cut him off with a scowl. And to add to my intimidation factor, I make blood rain slowly begin to fall around us at a very light amount before controlling the blood to float around the two of us in the air. The researcher from the newly created Researchers' Union made up of the remnants of the old union clears his throat, the old-looking man saying, "Ahem, my apologies Lady R. Karen, but I need to be leaving now." "Right. Sure you do." I watch him quickly make his way out with a raised brow, then I turn my attention back to Arya, who is peacefully sleeping on my lap. Now that he's gone, I stuff the blood into my blood well keep, finding the storage skill capable of holding a lot more blood than my old blood bank skill could. Even though it's not a skill focused on blood. Which is rather convenient. I always wanted a storage skill, and it's really nice to finally have one. Speaking of skills, I glance at my status while lightly playing with Aria's hair, making sure not to wake her in the process. Name, Scarlet Art Esker de Arcaren. Species, human/blood Lycan hybrid. Magic, blood. Titles. The Apex Predator. Age, 21. Level, 1012. SP, 6. Stats. Physical, 3136. Mental, 3135. Magical, 3135. Physical/level, 5. Mental/level, 4. Magical/level, 5. Free points, 0. Mana, 832, 396/34,398,787.5. Free points/level, 10. Active skills. Bloodborne Apocalypse. Skill level, 3. Description. Pain Diffusion. Skill level, 30. Description. Null Magic Field. Skill level, 30. Description. Blood of Ruin. Skill level, 30. Description. Metallicized Blood. Skill level, 29. Description. Power Drain. Skill level, 28. Description. Blood Nullification. Skill level, 27. Description. Rain of Blood. Skill level, 26. Description. Blood Transformation. Skill level, 21. Description. Healing Reversal. Skill level, 1. Description. Blood Control. Skill level, 1. Description. Beast Transformation. Skill level, static. Description. Partial Shift. Skill level, static. Description. Blood Swarm. Skill level, 23. Description. Gradual Corruption Nullification. Skill level, 30. Description. Blood Plague. Skill level, 35. Description. Crimson Overdrive. Skill level, 30. Description. Vampire Ascendancy. Skill level, 30. Description. Scarlet Aegis. Skill level, 20. Description. Eldritch Blood. Skill level, 20. Description. Blood Shadow. Skill level, 30. Description. Blood Retribution. Skill level, 20. Description. Passive skills. Lycan's Regeneration. Skill level, 3. Description. Blood Manipulation. Skill level, 26. Description. Princess's Decree. Skill level, static. Description. Apex Predator. Skill level, static. Description. Bloodwell. Keep. Skill level, static. Description. Bloodthirst. Skill level, 30. Description. Bloody Thorns. Skill level, 30. Description. Over the past few months I managed to level up my skills quite a bit. Although the two mythic skills have proven rather difficult to level up. Well, they're mythical skills after all, Tar says while floating around rather lazily. Of course they're harder to level than legendary and below rarity skills. True. By the way, Tar suddenly adds while looking over at me, when you thought earlier about having something important you needed to do, was it really just playing around with Arya? I firmly nod my head. Of course it was. I basically became her guardian after letting her live at my house, even if the bloodhound decided to move in as well to take care of her, so of course I need to drop by every now and then to spend some time with her. Tell that to the general, Tar points out, but I just roll my eyes and look up at the beautiful full moon high in the sky. The general can wait. It's not like I'm beholden to the man in any way. Besides, Ava helped me a while back when I went to her association for the end-of-year thingy, so I don't care much for the Golden Rider anyways. She also helped heal me after my battle with that nightshade before the ceasefire. You didn't like him before you even realized who he was though, Tar comments. Well, yeah, but still. I feel Arya shifting around slightly, making me glance down to find her waking up. Morning sleepyhead, I tell her, to which she groggily mutters a brief morning back. Then she gets off of me and begins slowly trudging into the house without another word. At this point it feels more like she's my daughter than my cousin in some ways. Which feels weird. Speaking of, I glance up at the moon again while pursing my lips in thought. Blue has been gradually gaining his emotions over the past several months, but not very fast. Right now, the man barely ever shows himself in public anymore, and doesn't even fight all that much anymore. Like he's trying to figure himself and everything out. Which really does mean that the Devourer's tactic is working. Then again, he's getting his emotions back in the end, so that's all that matters to me. I sigh at that thought before closing my eyes, deciding to just relax in the peace and quiet. Because unlike most other rich people houses, mine is located on its own land, far away from any cities. Although it's covered in defenses to protect the inhabitants, mainly Arya. And since there's only a few people living here, including me, some maids who make the food, Arya, and the bloodhound, there hasn't been a single fracture anywhere nearby. So it's a rather peaceful place to live. But I can't stay here for long since the war needs me, so I stand up from my seat and stretch a little before calling out to Arya, I'm heading out. After hearing her grumble something, knowing that I can hear it all the way from here, I begin flying through the sky using blood manipulation on my own blood to do so. A rather convenient method of using the skill. Time to go see that annoying general. I sigh after I finish dealing with the general, only to blink in surprise when I find Blue after leaving the meeting hall. The man is just standing in the middle of the hallway, still as a statue. And he has this strange look in his eyes. One of pain mixed with anger and sadness, but also with apathy somehow. Like he's trying and failing to lock away his emotions. Scarlet, he says with a nod of his head, and I nod back out of both instinct and the oddity that is the situation in general. Because Blue never calls me by my first name. Ever. It's always either my title or nothing at all. He would just use you instead of any sort of name. Well, that's new. Would you mind giving me a minute to speak? He asks, making my eyes widen in shock at the mere action of him asking instead of telling. In private. I frown at that last part before shrugging and saying, sure. We then leave the building and I follow him through the sky towards the middle of the ocean. But unlike Amelia, whose little base is a tower in the middle of the ocean, Blue simply snaps his fingers, making the water itself part to reveal a large hole with no water in it. He then starts going down the waterless hole, only briefly glancing up at me as I follow. And I quickly find that the ocean right about here is extremely deep. To the point that I'm pretty sure there's some sort of fissure under the ocean right here. Thankfully I can see in the dark, so it's not a problem. So after a long time of falling, we eventually arrive at some sort of metallic door on the floor of the ocean. He snaps his fingers again, making the door open itself, to reveal a rather grand-looking room on the other side. One that I take in as we fall into the room, the door sealing back up behind us. The room has a large statue of a kraken at the center of it, with various aquamarine life swimming around over a dozen floating pockets of water. And some of the aquamarine life isn't exactly the safest to have swimming like that, considering the sharks and orcas I see amongst them. One's just openly swimming in the water bubbles, occasionally jumping from one bubble to another. Meanwhile, the room itself is set up like a large courtyard, with a massive garden around the center, which is a large home. Holy shit. Yeah, I'd say Blue has his sister beaten in terms of grand-looking secret bases. I wonder if Amelia has been here before. Tar asks as he appears on my shoulder. Probably. After all, I know all of the knights have been to Purple's tower, so I wouldn't be surprised if they've all been to each other's lairs before. Although I do wonder what sort of home Black would have. Red's home is rather public though, since it's in a Tier 1 city. Blue leads me to a random little comfortable-looking table with chairs and several fountains surrounding it in the middle of the garden. And just seconds later, creatures that I have to assume are some sort of water elementals in the form of humanoid creatures walk over to us, serving us tea as we both sit down. Then silence ensues for nearly an entire awkward minute with the elemental servants just standing off to the side. Fortunately though, I'm used to servants. Considering Tartarus and being a princess. So they don't bother me in the least. They are a little surprising though. Actually, in hindsight, maybe they aren't considering Blue's previous emotionless self. Having artificial servants to take care of his home just makes sense. Eventually, Blue finally speaks. I wanted to ask about how Arya is doing. My eyes widen in shock at that. He's worried about Arya now? Enough of his emotions have come back for him to be able to worry about her? Then why hasn't he gone to visit her? She's actually been hoping for him to give her some acknowledgement ever since she heard about his emotions coming back. But he's just avoided her even after that? She hopes that you'll at least try to talk to her now that your emotions are returning, I bluntly tell him, deciding there's no point in keeping that from him. His mouth parts open slightly as a pained look spreads across his face, before he closes it again. Several seconds pass in silence as he looks at the bubbles of water around us. I let out a mental sigh, not doing it out loud due to the awkwardness of the situation. Then I join him in looking at the bubbles of water and aquamarine life in the air. A few minutes pass like this before I eventually glance at the man and suggest, you could always start out by bringing her here. Blue's gaze instantly snaps to me, his eyes widening slightly. I'm sure she'd like that. He opens his mouth to say something, only to close it again. Then he repeats that process once more, before finally saying, thank you. And thank you for getting my emotions back. I just shrug and point out, I'm just doing this for Arya. Blue nods his head in understanding. He seems to be really struggling about what to do. Then again, not having emotions for decades, and then suddenly having them again would probably be a rather major blow to deal with. Especially considering a lot of the things he's done over the years. The entire reason why Zavandra decided to return his emotions this way. A cruel fate. To slowly come to understand all of the atrocities you've committed without being able to do anything to fix them. I take a light sip of the tea before leaning back and looking straight up. Although I have to say, this is very awkward. Yep, Tar mutters in agreement. That it is. The next few days end up being rather awkward, since Arya keeps asking me to join her when Blue takes her out. And their interactions aren't exactly what I'd say normal. Considering that they aren't really saying anything. In the end, I'm just kind of left spending the couple-hour-long outings each time training my blood manipulation. One of the very few skills that I can train without actually fighting something, considering how it's not necessarily a 100% combat-based skill. Even if it's very useful in combat. Amelia even joins in on a couple of our outings, my biological mother seemingly rather happy that her brother is getting his emotions back. Albeit with some conflicting feelings about what he's done while he was missing them. Especially the time he almost killed me. She doesn't seem to want to let that go, even if he didn't have his emotions then. Which, as a result, makes things even more awkward. And I thought your family gatherings on your father's side was awkward, Tar mutters, making me nod my head as I walk through the falling snow on Mount Everest not long after my most recent dinner outing with them. If it weren't for Arya asking, I would never go to things like that. It's just too awkward and is honestly a bit of a waste of time, considering that I could be fighting. Instead. And here I thought you were growing more normal after reaching Class V, Tar says with a sigh. A pity. Rude. Although, I will admit, the sin of pride doesn't seem to affect me as much as it did before reaching Class V. That's probably because of your null magic becoming more solidified in your reality after you merged your reality and body, Tar says, making me look up at the moon above. Yeah. I search around the mountain for a bit before finding a small outpost made by the demon army. And without hesitation, I crush the outpost with some blood rain and more than a few plagues. You do know that the demons are starting to fear you now, right? Tar points out. Before they just respected you because of some of your achievements and your bloodline, but now they're truly starting to fear you just like your father and grandfather. Especially because of your plagues. Yeah, a lot of them are defaulting to calling me that title they made for me. The Warden of the Red Plague. That title will probably be a real title soon enough, Tar says. I nod my head in agreement after dealing with the straggler demons before looking around the mountains once more and finally finding them completely clear of demons. So I send a message to the annoying general about that and quickly begin heading back towards the Arctic through the air. Time for some more corruption. The Oni Citadel. A woman can be seen standing on the wall of the main Oni Citadel belonging to the Lord of Hellfire himself as it overlooks the Class V gate leading to Earth's Demon Isle. The woman has two bat-like wings with a full figure, a narrow but sharp tail, blood-red armor that covers every inch of her skin, and two horns that follow the curve of her head. But despite that, her face is soft and has a soothing look to it. One that doesn't match the image most humans have of succubus in the least. However, it's something she's proud of. If for no reason other than to spite her own sin that she hates more than anything in the world. Lily Delrose lets out a sigh when a pool of purple and red light appears next to her before it morphs into a screen to show two nobles kneeling in the throne room at Demon Isle. Two of the three nobles she sent after the princess. You don't need to say anything, she states, purposefully not looking directly at the two so that her sin won't act up. They failed and even lost one of their number. I was already prepared for that to happen, but to lose another noble while we're still saving up reality energy for the Reaper's passage. Lily sighs before glancing in the direction of the sky, where a large bubble of blood can be seen blocking out the moon and any celestial objects as the planet itself slowly moves away from the void invasion. Then she turns her gaze towards the central continent, to the massive pillar of blood shooting up into the sky that she can see even from where she's standing on the southwestern continent. Several seconds pass in silence before she turns back to look at the gate, wishing that she could pass through it herself and simply drag the princess to Tartarus. But the gate can't handle her right now. It doesn't have the reality energy. And even if it did have the reality energy, they need to save it for the Reaper to pass through. Now that Scarlet is a noble herself, as a princess as well, she has authority over any other noble demon so long as she has her crest out. So none of the demon nobles can harm her or even capture her to bring her back. Because if they send too many nobles or too high a level nobles, then the princess will just escape herself or as a last resort use her crest. But if they send too few or too weak nobles, then she'll just kill them, making their situation even worse. If it weren't for that white knight. Lily feels her eyes spark with a pink flame as her anger and the memory of the woman's appearance the time she saw her with Leonidas, not to mention Leonidas's appearance, sparks her sin of lust for a moment, only for Lily to dig her claws into her own palms to snap herself out of it. Then she takes a deep breath and lets it out. Damn it. The succubus takes another deep breath before glancing at the illusion showing the image of the two nobles, still purposefully not looking directly at either of them as she says, "There's only one thing we can do at this point." She turns to face the gate again. Tell her about what's happening. Understood, Duchess Rose, both of the nobles declare before the illusion vanishes. I'll just have to hope that Her Highness decides to come back on her own. I let out a long and drawn-out sigh as I tap my foot in impatience, simply letting the zombies around me each take a single bite out of my arm. On an already wounded spot, of course. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to scratch me. Then I blow up the zombie in question's head with nothing more than a tiny needle of blood I made from blood manipulation. A rather long and drawn-out process that has me wondering if I can try getting a game console or something out here that the demons won't just destroy. But I eventually drop that plan since I don't think it would work out very well. I'm pretty sure the zombies biting my arms would make playing a game rather difficult. And I'm pretty sure anyone passing by would think you need to go see a psychiatrist, Tar mutters, but I ignore him. How many more instances of corruption do I need to clear out, anyways? He doesn't say anything for a few seconds before answering, a lot. I just turn an unamused stare towards him without saying a word. The tanuki shrugs his little tanuki shoulders from his place floating several meters above the ground, outside of the zombies' range. I eventually let out a sigh before suddenly stiffening up, the process of which sends all of the zombies on me flying before they turn into little pastes on the trees around us as I focus on the powerful life source I sense approaching with life sense. And within seconds, my wounds all heal and my armor repairs itself. Then I activate my armor's crest, making it appear on my chest as I call out, I know you wouldn't approach me like this to attack. Lily isn't stupid enough to send someone to do that. So why are you here? It takes a second, but the source of the life energy and powerful mana enters my sight through the trees, revealing themselves to be a vampire. Artorius Bond Nightborn Vampire level 1501. A high-level vampire count. The man is wearing a set of black and blue armor and his glowing eyes are radiating through the cold mist around us as he quickly bows down to me and says, I have a message from Duchess Rose. I fold my arms before tapping my finger once on my arm, making chains of blood shoot out of the ground to wrap around each and every zombie nearby to stop them from moving. Or more specifically, to stop them as they try to attack the both of us. Wouldn't want the Count killing them when they haven't infected me yet after all. Speak, I tell the Count with a frown on my face. Yes, Your Highness, he states without raising his head. Tartarus is in dire condition right now, and we need your help. My eyes narrow slightly. His Majesty is in seclusion within his castle as he moves the planet. I blink at that casual statement and the Reaper has taken control of the kingdom in his stead. However, the Lord of Hellfire has entered a frenzy due to the actions and emotion of his son and is destroying vast amounts of Tartarus in the process. He finally raises his head with a pleading look in his eyes. We, the demons of Tartarus, beg of you for your aid in bringing His Majesty out of his seclusion and ending this crisis. My frown grows deeper as I try to process everything the man had just said. Particularly the part about Gramps moving the planet. Which seems like a bit too big of a fact to simply gloss over like the Count did. It does explain what Gramps is doing. Since I knew he was busy doing something, but he refused to say what it was. Tar? He's telling the truth, Tar answers right away, most likely allowed to talk to me about the subject now that I've learned about it on my own. Sort of. Your grandfather has been busy moving the planet in the opposite direction of the Void Invasion ever since the Void Invasion began. And since it's a rather delicate process, he's locked himself away in his castle on his own during it. So he's too busy to pay attention to what's happening on Tartarus. Would he notice it if I stepped on Tartarus myself? Or if I tried entering his castle? It's not likely, Tar says, surprising me. He has completely sealed himself in, and no one can enter his castle at all. Neither can he sense anything around him since his focus is entirely on moving the planet without killing the inhabitants in it or destroying the planet itself. The very fact that he's worrying about destroying the planet on accident is a terrifying notion. Actually, come to think of it, if he can move the planet, then why didn't he move it towards us? Because he doesn't know where in the universe Earth is, Tar answers. He only knows where the Void Invasion is because of the pure power sent out through the rift from the Class 6 Voided Overlord. Something that can be sensed from halfway across the universe. Oh. That's rather frightening. What could I possibly do to help this situation? I ask the Count in front of me before adding, from what my Fae partner has told me, there shouldn't be anything I can do. The Count grimaces and asks, are you sure? If you didn't already know, Gramps wouldn't be able to sense me since he's so busy, so the only thing I might be able to do to help is to clear the curse from the demons, I answer with a light shrug. An answer that seems to give the Count some hope before he frowns again. Is he? What do you need to do that? The Count asks, an incredibly serious look on his face. A light grin emerges on my face. This could be useful. The Purple Knight of Humanity, known by all as a wise and mysterious woman whose visible age changes almost every time she is seen, finds herself feeling stumped as she stares at the scrying window in front of her. One that she often uses to check on the progress of the war directly from her tower, making her not need to leave her home. Something that allows her to keep to her shut-in nature. But now she's not sure if there's something wrong with her scrying window or if there's something wrong with the princess's head as she watches the girl standing at the front of several long lines of undead demons, each of whom are just walking up to her, scratching her once, and then being turned into nothing but dust. With 4 lines moving along at once. All while the girl frequently cures the viruses they give her. What? And if that sight wasn't bizarre enough, she finds several noble demons simply standing around bowing down to her without raising their heads. But she knows that the nobles are all slaughtering every undead that scratches the princess, as despite their seeming stillness, each of the nobles is very clearly extremely tense right now. As if what is currently happening was treasonous to them or something. No, seriously. What is going on? You already know what she's doing, so there's no reason to ask, Gabriella's Fae, Amethyst, states in a droll tone of voice. Yes, but why is she doing it like that? Because it's fastest that way, Amethyst answers, the Fae appearing in the air in the form of a tiny, floating penguin. Purple purses her lips at that before lightly shaking her head and changing the scrying screen to show Demon Isle, where the demons are currently gathering for a war council. One whose purpose is already known to Purple. To think the Lord of Hellfire would go berserk at this time. And all the other demon lords trying to fight him to stop him would do is enrage him even more, so there isn't anything they can do without the Demon King. She frowns while tapping her chin for a second. Then she just sighs, closing out of the scrying screen as she lies back down on the floor of her tower. At this rate, the war might end sooner than anyone would have ever thought. Purple stares up at the ceiling for a bit before Amethyst simply flops down on Purple's chest, making the knight let out a brief breath of air in response. But she doesn't show any surprise since she's used to her behavior after being with the Fae for a couple centuries by now. One way or another, this is going to mean more work for me soon enough. The knight sighs at that thought. Scarlet. Scarlet, I'm pretty sure there are people judging you right now, Tar points out, making me briefly glance at the nobles around us. I doubt the nobles would judge me. They are too fiercely and obsessively loyal to do that. To the point of them being kind of creepy. They're even killing off their own undead after letting them infect me as if the mere act of infecting me while my crest is out being blasphemy in and of itself. And if someone happens to look at us through scrying magic? Tar asks from wherever he is in the in-between. Meh. Doesn't really matter. The only one who is strong enough to scry on nobles would be a Class V anyways, and the only Class V seer is Purple. And knowing what I know of that woman, she wouldn't care. Probably. She's probably more worried about her workload increasing rather than something like what I'm doing. Is she really that lazy? Tar asks, sounding surprised. Yep. I didn't know this before, and most of the humans on Earth don't either, but Purple is a shut-in who absolutely despises leaving her tower and dealing with others. Her whole mysterious motif was just built because she doesn't like talking to people, so she stays quiet most of the time. Throughout our conversation, more and more undead continue to infect me and I continue using gradual corruption nullification, removing their infections mere instants after they're given. Largely because they're such weak infections. Ones that I would probably end up healing on my own naturally within half a minute without even using gradual corruption nullification. That, Tar mutters, pausing for a second before continuing, doesn't really sound like the sort of behavior a Knight of Humanity should have. That has me raising a brow. What, so you would prefer she be a psychopath who is now slowly regaining his emotions and grieving over what he did like Blue? Or have a split personality, with one being a trickster almost on par with Kitsune and the other a psychopath like Black? You have a good point, Tar responds after a second. The Knights are all largely known for their rather unique personalities. It's just something that's bound to happen to Guardians over time as they grow stronger. Just like yours, Tar says while appearing in the air and sagely nodding his head, making me narrow my eyes at him. Excuse me, but I haven't changed the slightest bit since I contracted. Tar raises a brow. I divert my gaze slightly. Okay, maybe I've changed a little. I find him raising his other brow out of the corner of my eyes. Well, anyways, what's going on with your father these days? I smile at the tanuki while acting like our previous topic never happened. He scoffs, but answers all the same. Father has been busy running council after council, preparing for something big. But none of my siblings have been allowed to participate in the councils, so I don't know what any of them are about. Secret councils? That's interesting. Yeah, Tar continues. But there is one thing I do know. His eyes narrow slightly. Whatever he's planning, it won't happen for several years at the very least. I wonder, could it be that? After pondering over it for a few seconds, I just shake my head, making the nobles around me all tense up at my movements. But I just raise a hand to stop them from doing anything. Then I continue letting the undead take bites and scratches at me. Fun. Activity is at its peak throughout the universe. On Earth, humans, both guardians and otherwise, can be seen fighting off the demon threat in the war. On Tartarus, demons are doing nothing but fleeing from the Lord of Hellfire's rampage, many of them taking to joining the war even if they weren't previously planning on doing so. And within various planets all across a single corner of the universe, the Void Invasion continues, wiping out one planet after another, destroying the planets themselves after slaughtering every inhabitant of them. Meanwhile, inside of an office on Earth, the General of Humanity's military continues strategizing for the war, his teeth gritted as he feels the loss of the princess's assistance over the past several days. A loss that had come with only a single message of warning telling him that she would be back soon. And no matter how much he contacts the knights, none of them answer him to tell him what she's doing. At the same time on Tartarus, the demon lords other than the Lord of Hellfire gather to discuss what they should do with the Lord of Hellfire, his rampage having gone on too long and the princess still not showing any progress on removing the curse. All while the Demon King himself continues carefully moving the planet, unaware of everything going on around the planet itself as he does so. Until a single universal notification rings out through the minds of every being initialized into the system on both Tartarus and Earth, the system itself not having expended anywhere beyond those two planets. A notification that has everyone immediately halting whatever they were doing, leaving silence to spread across the worlds. Warning! This is a universal notification. Scarlet Art Esker de Arcaren has attained a new title-bearing mythic skill. Scarlet has now attained the title, the Bane of Corruption. May their achievement ring out throughout the known universe. Then the many important people across the worlds each have different responses. The demon lords all let out sighs of relief, deciding to put their decision of putting down the Lord of Hellfire aside for now. The General of Humanity's military lets out a pent-up breath, wondering why the princess has to always surprise him every time something happens. The Knights of Humanity each show knowing looks as if they had already expected the notification. And the many demons and humans across the planet grow wild in their mutual cheers for their shared princess. A princess who is the first being to gain 2 titles within such a short period of time. Lastly, the Demon King's lips twitch ever so slightly after hearing the notification, his control of the world ever so briefly slipping during that moment of satisfaction, making Tartarus itself shake slightly, startling the demons who are busy celebrating. But the slip doesn't last long and the shaking almost immediately stops, so the demons return to cheering almost immediately. Scarlet. Huh. I don't know if I should be happy about this or upset. Probably happy? Tar says, sounding unsure himself. Rejoice, user Scarlet Art Esker de Arcaren, for you have earned the mythic skill known as Bane of Corruption. And along with it, you have been assigned the title of the Bane of Corruption. Bane of Corruption. This skill allows the user to nullify any sort of corruption in their body instantly. They may also nullify any sort of corruption outside of their body, given they have the mana and time to nullify it. Ritual scale corruption requires ritual scale usage of this skill to nullify and a massive amount of mana belonging to the user of the skill. Rejoice for the Bane of Corruption's arrival. Congratulations, Your Highness, every last demon in the clearing shouts while all of the remaining undead vanish in an instant as if completely erased. Then one of the nobles, the very same that had originally approached me about the development on Tartarus with the Lord of Hellfire, walks up and asks while kneeling down, Your Highness, was the skill what you believed it to be? I purse my lips for a second, making all of the nearby demons tense up, before I shrug. The nobles blink in surprise, so I answer, Bane of Corruption can indeed nullify the curse. They all immediately begin cheering, only for me to raise my hand to call for silence. But I will have to use the skill as a ritual type skill to nullify another ritual type skill, and it looks like I'm going to have what the system designates a massive amount of mana to use the skill on a ritual. And the amount of mana and time it takes will depend on the strength of the curse. No one says a word as everyone digests what I just said. From what I can tell, I won't likely be able to nullify the curse just yet still. It's most likely too strong for that. Not to mention that I know the curse is a ritual skill cast by the late Emperor of the Humans, back on Tartarus in the past. So I'll need a bunch of other powerful people to help me use the ritual version of the skill, to even attempt removing it. But just maybe. You think you might be able to nullify the curse from individuals, instead of the entire species? Tar asks, making me purse my lips and nod my head amidst the silence of the demons. It may be possible. And while trying it on my own curse might not prove that it's possible for other curses, since it looks like nullifying corruption on me doesn't seem to cost mana or time anymore, it will at least tell me if the curse can be partially removed or not. Yeah, Tar mutters, his voice quiet as if he's waiting with anticipation for me to attempt it. And so, I do.